Hello, 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 everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Glad to hear that you're reading about Western Sahara. Viva la Sahara Occidental. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. So, for today, we have some interesting stuff. Of course, we're going to go into some historical content that, interestingly enough, decided to actually take the whole red pill, blue pill framing. But don't worry, it's from David, otherwise known as, gosh, I always forget his channel name. I'm very forgetful today. The one that does Myths of Ancient History. Being a mod is so cool. Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Also, hello, all Mistress Lotus. So nice to see you, my friend. It's been a while, but it is a pleasure, and thank you so much for your good vibes. I definitely need them, especially now that I am down here in Mexico. Yes. Very true, very true. So, we're going to be going over that, a little bit over some of the immigration stuff, right? Because it's, maybe go over a little bit over the economy stuff, maybe. I don't know. It's, you know. But then we are definitely going to go over cozy gaming, because there was a big important report on that, saying that cozy gaming is the most important type of gaming. So, you know. But without further ado, coming to you live from La Ciudad de Mexico, otherwise known as Mexico City, it's Shakespeare, or Shakespeare, whichever you prefer. So, for today, like I said, a little bit earlier than the other. Yes, let's go. Yes. We're gonna be, like I said, watching Red Pill, Blue Pill Romans, apparently. Put on by, of course, World of Antiquity, otherwise known as David Miano, otherwise known as the guy that does the Myths of Ancient History guy. So, why is this important? Well, because people still want to look at history in this weird way. Hello, Engels. It's so good to see you. Welcome in, welcome in. Just made yourself some tea? Oh, wonderful. I just have coconut water. That's all I have. But I needed to, keep myself hydrated. And it was on special, so there was that too. Oh, I know. Like, I mean, I would have gotten un coco, but I didn't go into town today. Didn't go into the... It's so expensive in Germany? Why am I not surprised? I feel like this is a very high school mindset to view history, and maybe I'm perfectly equipped for this. Well, I will say one thing, and that is that, it's very strange when I like was first told about what these things meant, right? Outside, because again, like I didn't, like really have much of an online presence until more recently, I guess, in history, one might say. Black Yorkshire tea. Ooh, that sounds nice with a little milk. Oh yes, that's very nice, very nice. Um, uh, is it Osborne's, or is that the brand name? I forget. But anyway, so what I didn't quite know when people were talking about the red pill, blue pill stuff. I didn't quite know what they were talking about. Then I learned that it's about a movie. So then I'm thinking, it's a reference to the movie, and then they're like, actually, no, it's not actually. It's like somewhat related to the movie, but somewhat not, right? It's actually just using the movie so that then it can, say it's other stuff, right? But that's how it goes. That's how it goes. The Matrix, yeah, the Matrix. And so yeah, that's kind of how I was introduced to it, by actually watching, by actually being told, like, ah, yes, it's about the movie, and I'm like, oh, it's about the movie. And then I read about the movie, and then I'm like, this still doesn't make sense, but, then I figure out, which is an allegory. Yeah, no, I have heard about that, but what's interesting is that in the original movie script, right, if you take the red pill, right, it doesn't take you out, like, you don't actually go out of the Matrix, right? It actually just takes you to a higher level of the Matrix, where now you're even more entrapped, right? Which, in a way, if you consider the whole red pill movement, I guess, if one could call it that, it's kind of, because they end up becoming, like, very hyper capitalist, right? Like, they sort of take on all of the things that are very oppressive about capitalism and the patriarchy, etc., and just kind of, like, dial them up as much as they can, right? And so it's like, but yes, I have heard that. So without further ado, also let me know how the volume is, because I can make it louder. Is a lie.
You think you've taken the red pill?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to say, this is just wow. This is this is such a stereotype. This is like, I remember once there was a what each university major looks like picture, and this is very close, and it was a drawing, but this looks very close to what they said history majors dress like. I don't know what it is about the tweed and the corduroy. History major, yes, yeah. Like, I'm just looking at them like, this reminds me exactly of the...
You think you've woken up to the truth about history. But what if I told you you're still plugged into the Matrix? What if I told you that everything you've been...
That's a very interesting hand gesture there. You're still plugged into the Matrix, Thank you for the visual demonstration. I will keep that in mind. I will remember to not be plugged into the Matrix anymore.
Parroting about Rome is just another illusion.
The Romans and Greeks were ancient Romans.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? We're obviously... No. What? See... The barbarian... Oh gosh. This is... so far this is not going well. That reminds me, I have to look at YouTube chat. Thank you, YouTube mods, who are currently looking at that. For some reason... Okay. So, history major, yes, indeed. Oh gosh, every time I see these, I'm just like, why is this a thing? But anyway. But yes, people do like to say this stuff. Europe, no history, Everyone in Europe was other... What does that even mean? White adjacent. Oh gosh, I don't even want to read the rest of that. With all arbitrary endings removed? State of Rome is the closest there ever was. Okay, no. Just no. All of this is not... None of this is... No.
These are the takes of people who believe they've broken free, that they see the world as it really is. But in reality, they've swallowed a comfortable modern myth, a blue pill version of Rome that never actually existed.
Oh my god. If you believe that the Romans are white, you're blue pilled. Mary Beard is the most red-pilled historian yet.
You really want to know what happened? Do you actually want the red pill?
Oh my god. Oy boy, what have we signed up for?
Then buckle up, because I'm about to take you.
Buckle. Sorry, I can't hear "buckle up" now without referencing. Like, I had no idea. Oh my goodness! Hello, Boy Meets Minnie. It's so good to see you. Yes, long time no see. The move. It was the move. Moving to La Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City. Yes, indeed. That made it a bit difficult to stream because I had to get a computer that could actually. Well, that wasn't my old computer. I'll put it like that. So. Salam Meradost. Shalom Aleichem. But it's so good to see you. It's good to see everybody. I've missed streaming, and so yeah, it's so nice to be back. But it's good to see you as well. But yes, yes, we are learning about the good to see you too. Thank you so much, Alstrich. That's very kind of you. Meredost is my friend, but I figured. Yeah. I hope I pronounced it correctly, though. That's always my thing, because I'm always like, can you show me the phonology on that? No. I do think his tie is interesting. But I don't know. See, for me, like earth tones, like it's like to me dark brown with light brown on top. I don't know. I just don't think that would work on me. I just don't think that would look good on me. But I don't know. I could be completely wrong. But I guess it works for David. But I don't know. I don't know. And one, it's too hot and humid in Mexico City to wear stuff like this. Although I don't know. Maybe that's just me as well.
Down the rabbit hole.
No, what? What is this? Wait, is this the... Oh, this looks like the Duolingo Coliseum. And this is the real Coliseum? I know! You did in Scripted. Ah, thank you. I know! Blue Pill Rome versus Red Pill Rome. Oh, gosh. Is this supposed to be the same person? Like, I don't know, like, they look like they have the same features, because they have, like, the same ears, sort of? I don't know what's happening here, but they look like they're supposed to be the same person.
If you've seen The Matrix, you know the idea. Take the blue pill, and you stay asleep in a comfortable...
Yes. I don't know, both of them, like, this one looks like Mucinex on the left, and this one looks like Advil on the right, so I don't know. Poorly tailored. The poorly tailored corduroy jacket is not giving. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, to me, it's like it has to work, right? Like one, it has to be the right tones. It has to be the right, like it has to, you know, like there's a reason why the like tweed jacket in Indiana Jones, right? Like when he actually has to be a professor. It's red pill versus blue pill Roman history. I need both. Spoiler alert, they're not pills, they're suppositories. Well, in that case, no. I need both Advil and Mucinex. I'll make my own purple. Right, exactly. The mewing, I know! Like, which, what I first found out what mewing was, I honestly thought that at first, it literally meant that people would make, you know, the, like, ululations of a cat. Right? I'm thinking, cat noises. Like, that people find that as an exercise, you know? But apparently not. Apparently it's something strange about tongue placement, I guess.
Illusion. Believing what you've always been told. Take the red pill, and you wake up to the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. Well, a lot of people online think they know the real history of Rome, but what they are really versed in is pop culture. Others think they've uncovered hidden truths about Rome and that they're seeing reality while everyone else is lost in fantasy. But here's the irony. These same people...
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine VR history classes? Oh gosh, that's gonna be horrible. Like, I don't know. Like it's... Unfortunately, I learned about things like mewing from the ultimate source, 14 to 16-year-old boys. I mean, for me, I mean, again, like if I'm teaching when I teach like introductory classes, again, it's like 18, 19-year-old, you know. So it's not, you know. So yeah. But oh gosh, VR history classes
are the ones still stuck in the blue pill version of Rome. They've traded one set of myths for another, repeating simplistic, politically convenient narratives instead of looking at what actually
Oh
happened.
my gosh, the funny thing is that this does sound like what right wingers say, right? Whose channel is this? It's World of Antiquity. It's World of Antiquity. I'll put it in the chat, in both chats. If I can, anyway. Unless a mod can put it in the other chat. I'm questioning the implication you participate in fights you're learning about in VR history class. Yes. Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, I've used their videos, I've used his videos before. Right? And yes, if you'd like to help with my research, you can always do so by going to Throne. Right now, I think I currently have my, you know, survival fund, you know, open. So if you'd like to donate to that, I would be more than appreciative. But there's also other options if you'd like. But yes, but yeah, I mean, it's essentially like that VR Pog face is something, right? Right? Like, it would almost make like a good emote, too. Like, you could just cut it out and just... Also, hello, Zero. It's so nice to see you. Hope you're doing well.
In this video, we're going to take the real red pill, the one based on evidence, primary sources, and actual historical scholarship. It's time.
Imagine if that was what red pillars actually meant when they said that. But no, it usually means the exact opposite. It's just whatever they, you know...
to unplug from the false history of Rome and see it for what it really was. People living in their illusory pop culture bubble might say...
Oh my gosh, is that PAX 2? That... I think that is, right? Oh my gosh. The level of history revisionism is something else. I don't even know, like, what is this meme here? I don't even get that meme. I have no idea what this is. He removed the name. I know, but the logo, I'm just like, wait a second. But strong enough to sack Rome in 390 BC.
Just something like this. The Romans and Greeks were European. State of Rome is the closest thing there ever was to a European civilization state. Is it accurate to call...
Oh my gosh. I'm glad he's doing the voices. Because if he would have read them seriously, but also just... civilization state. It's like, tell me that you've at least... Well, they probably haven't read the book by Samuel Huntington. They've probably just watched a video on the Clash of Civilizations. Because that's literally where that phrasing comes from. I mean... Which itself is just a rehashing of Oswald Spengler anyway, but still, The Clash of Civilization, such a bad book.
The Romans European? Seems so. I think a common view is that the Romans were these people who came from Italy, and they conquered a bunch of other people around them and ruled over them. Roman conquerors, European. Roman subjects, mixed. But that's not what happened. Throughout most of Roman history, a Roman was not someone who came from the city of Rome, or even who came from Italy.
Yeah, that's true. Like, imagine if that's all it referred to. I mean, then that would be like... I mean, I'm sorry, like... Italy wasn't a thing until late. Yeah, exactly, just like India.
Are you ready for the red pill? Being Roman was not about...
Are you ready for the red pill?
Where someone came from. There were Romans who had never lived anywhere near Rome, or even in Italy or in Europe. Being Roman was not about genetics. Yes, you could be considered Roman if both your parents were Roman citizens, but you also could become Roman if no one in your family had ever been Roman before. Being Roman was not about language. Latin was the dominant language, legally speaking, but many Romans had other primary languages. Being Roman was not purely about culture either.
Yeah, like, I mean, again, it's like... In any country where there is a predominant language, that doesn't mean that... I mean, like, there are other places that illustrate this very, very well, right? Like, places like where Mandarin though it is the hegemonic and the and even the prestige language at certain times in history, it's not always that. It changes over time, and even then, like, the only reason why we even, like, one thing that also is really important to keep in mind is that once languages become standardized and become, official, right? Palestinians, Syrians, peoples of North Africa, and yes, it was called Palestine in the 5th century BCE. Herodotus, the quote-unquote father of history, called it as such, Palestina. And yes, if you would like to sign up for my history courses, or, well, actually right now the one I'm starting is actually my Spanish course, you can do so at the link there. It almost sounds like he's giving the argument that Rome was woke. Imagine that. Imagine. Are you telling me that Rome was woke? I think because many people would actually be upset if they actually thought of, like, what being a Roman was not tied to this idea that it was all, like, again, like, it's just, yeah, it's just absolutely impossible for people to even, like genealogy, even that, like, the importance of genealogy is not even something that is that seen as that important, right, in classical history. So there's also that too, right? So
there were people who fully embraced Roman customs, but were not considered Roman, just as there were people with different cultural traditions that were considered Roman.
At its core, Roman identity was a legal status, a matter of citizenship. To ask who was a Roman is to ask a legal question.
And also another thing too is, like, at one point the Romans in 237 CE gave everybody that did not have the status of a slave, everybody, Roman citizenship. So even then it wasn't even a limited thing, right? Like the legal question was expanded, right, to include people who wouldn't have otherwise, necessarily have been included, in the meanwhile. I feel like languages and cultures evolve in similar ways, even via similar mechanisms, and similar to the lack of the fossil record compared to what we know. There's so much variation that existed. Oh, thank you so much, Zara. Thank you so much for the Prime subscription. 20 months. Meow. Thank you so much. There's so much variation that existed that we will never be aware of and need to account for in more classical historical discussions. Yeah, no, I understood. I understand what you mean, Miss Frizzle. Yeah, like, that's another thing too, is, like, we know that there were immense differences because even if we look at just the Italian peninsula, right? You have Vulgar Latin, right, which just means that which was spoken by the people, right? You have all of these different dialects, right? And even the dialect that is the prestige dialect of Italian isn't even the Roman dialect. It's the Florentine dialect, right? Because in Rome, they actually, the way how they say cheese is different from the way how most people know it. They know formaggio, right? Like fromage in French. But actually, in Rome, like, it's actually, like, people might know the dish I'm talking about, but there's a dish called cacio e pepe, right? Cacio is how in Rome, in the Roman dialect, you say cheese. But it's closer to being caseum, which means cheese in Latin, right? So queso, right? Queijo in Portuguese and Käse in German, right, are closer to the Latin, quote unquote, right? I say closer to. But yet we understand formaggio, right? We know that is related, right? So, yeah, it is very much the same, right? And yeah, we can't see it, again, some of it is that we can't see it because so much of it wasn't written down, right? So that's the, like, lack of the fossil record, so to speak, right, that you're speaking of. Like, we can infer from whatever people wrote, right, either in Latin or in other languages, right? But if any particular language didn't have a written form, then it's very difficult for us to know about it, right? So,
rather than an ethnic one. If you were a Roman citizen, you were Roman. And for those who held it, Roman citizenship was likely the most important part of their identity, more significant than ethnic or linguistic ties. Considering the Romans as a whole, it would be more appropriate to call them Mediterranean rather than European. While the city of Rome was located in Europe,
I really don't like that framing, because then that's acting like there's something. I don't know. That's just me, though. I don't know. I'm usually not of the, like, let's try to give. I don't know. That's just. Because then that's saying, yes, this area has some sort of meaning, right? That it otherwise, that, like, this area doesn't, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I get what people mean by it. And I get that, it's more to say that there is an interconnectedness between other cultures along the Mediterranean. I get that. But I'm always just hesitant, because I know that, like, in the 19th century, and even, precursors, right, want to divide people into, groupings like that. Let's just call them Romulans and live in Star Trek. Yeah, right, automated space communism, right?
the Roman Empire extended across 3 continents: Europe, North Africa, and Asia. The Mediterranean Sea was at the heart of their world, serving as the empire's primary conduit for trade, culture, and military power. The Romans themselves called it Mare Nostrum, our sea, reflecting their Mediterranean identity.
Or the Lacuna Romana, the Roman lake. But anyway.
They were not oriented towards Europe. They faced the broader Mediterranean world. Their economy relied on Mediterranean trade networks, their diet was based on Mediterranean staples, and their artistic, religious, and intellectual influences were shared with other Mediterranean cultures, such as the Greeks, Egyptians, and Phoenicians. The Roman Empire's ethnic composition consisted of peoples from Spain to Syria and Britain to North Africa. Many of Rome's key figures, emperors.
See, like, then it's like, then when you say that, it's like it's ethnic composition. Well, I know what he's trying to say, right? That the peoples that lived within the borders of the Roman Empire, right? Like, this is me having to extrapolate, right? The peoples that lived within the borders of the Roman Empire came from as diverse places as this and this. But then by saying ethnic, now we're acting as though there is some, like that's always the thing, right? It's like, assume Rome a été élevé par une chienne. Ah. Mais des loups.
Generals, philosophers were from regions outside of Europe. Anyway, in antiquity, Europe was a geographical region, but was not seen as a unified cultural or political sphere. The modern concept of Europe, as a distinct cultural entity, developed long after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. This is not to say that European civilization wasn't founded on Roman civilization.
See, like those terms, European civilization, right? Like, now we're starting to, I mean, again, I'm not saying that's, anything negative about necessarily the idea of, but again, that's, I don't know. I just hesitate.
It certainly was. And in most Western Civ courses, Rome, along with Greece and the Bible, are rightly considered the main foundations of Western civilization.
But I feel like we should question why, right, something like the Bible, right, is included in that, right? Is it right? Because then we have to question, right? Is it that it's St. Jerome's translation or the Septuagint or whatever, right? Like it's once you have it become a Greek document or a Roman document, quote unquote, right? Because it's in Latin, that now it can be included, right? But if it were still a Hebrew document, right, would it be included in that? Right? I don't know. That's just.
But Western Civ came into existence after the fall of the Roman Empire in the West. The Roman Empire itself was no more a European civilization than Judea was. Clearly true for the empire.
like, well, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that one. That's just.
But the Republic can be fairly described as European, I think. Caesar, under
Okay, are these memes were they like are they added by him? Hello, Simon Pierre. Comment allez-vous? Lupa can refer. That's true. That's true. Um, like I don't know. I just feel it's like a weird thing to just. I don't know.
understood Gaulish
Oh
government.
yeah, but are these things are they already included as part of the thing, or did he add them in there? Because I don't like. Is he using the memes, or were the memes already in there? I can't really.
As similar to the Roman, with senates and the like, but saw Eastern and Greek governments as alien.
Wow, 3 blue pills and 1 comment. Let's take them one by one.
Oh my god.
Can the Roman Republic be fairly described as European? Okay, well, let's see how far back in time we have to go for even us to consider the Romans as European.
During the reign of the first emperor of Rome,
God,
Augustus
no.
Caesar, the Roman historian Livy wrote about the foundations of Rome under
Libby. Oh my gosh, Libby. I would love that, right? Like, oh gosh, what was that like? Oh gosh, I would love her to just be. Ça va bien, ça va bien. Merci, merci.
legendary founder Romulus. He describes a city made up of a diverse mix of peoples and backgrounds. According to his account, and others, Rome began as a fusion of Trojan and Latin peoples, producing Romulus, Remus, and Rome's first settlers. Well, guess where Troy?
Well, I know what he's gonna say now, but also there are many different recountings of the foundation of Rome, right? Like some of which don't even include the she-wolf, right? In fact, in ancient Rome, ça va gérer de la destruction des États. Ah, ça marche, ça marche. Is that in ancient Rome they actually built up a little hut, right, with like a tree and everything, like next, like on this hill, and that they would claim that that was like the home of Romulus as a tourist attraction, right? So like even back then, right, you know, they had the little tourist attraction of like this Romulus was here, right, so to speak. In fact, Mary Beard goes into this into her book, the SPQR. And that's why I don't know why this little boy has. Is he crying? Like I don't. Is that the monument they used to fool the American tourists? Sounds like, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like literally, they literally built up this little hut. Like way after, you know, like again, this was like when Rome was already an empire, and then they're like, oh yes, this is where Romulus lived, and you know, it's just it's just on a random hill. Like they just chose it because, you know, because again, there are multiple stories describing the foundation. So yeah, they just had it as a tourist attraction, and it's still, you know, it's
Troyes, Asia. Now, it is probably not true that Trojans were the ancestors of the Romans.
You know, I do think this does bring into question though this idea of like Asia being everything from the Bosphorus to sort of to the end, right, of what we think of as being Asia. Like all, you know, Asia Minor or Asia Minor, right? Like is what people would call Cappadocia, and you know, the child is wiping mustard off of his face. The traditional Roman Italian sub. Oh my gosh. You know, when you come over here, your family with all of us. Over here's your cousin Joey and your cousin Cesare. And you know, I don't know what she's doing over here, but I don't know what her name is, but she's over here visiting your cousin Joey. And over here's your Uncle Paul. You know. But don't mind him, and don't mind the people calling Big Polly Castellano. Don't pay any heed to that. You know, that's typically what, and that is 100% what the Romans sounded like, by the way.
But we can at least say that you'd never hear even the earliest Romans saying, yes, we are Europeans. In fact, Rome consistently represented itself as having multi-ethnic origins, first in regard to the people of Italy, and then expanding outward.
Sure, you might say, the Romans wouldn't
Romulus is preparing for instant transfer.
describe themselves as European, but we, in retrospect, can fairly call them that. The first Romans were a blend of Latin
Whoa, careful what you say about Cousin Paulie. He's on the Senate, right? Yeah, like, there's also this point where Mary Beard goes into how, like, there's this description of... Wait a second, what do you mean? Who exactly was calling me Big Paulie Castellano? Because that ain't even our last name, you know, just...
Faliscans, Umbrians, Etruscans, and Sabines, all from Italy, yes. Pre-Roman Italy was home to at least 6 major languages, 3 religious systems, and...
And again, it is important to remember, it is at least, right? This is only what we have the evidence for. At least 6 major languages, right? Etruscan, which was complete, you know. But, like, the fact that the people of Latium, right, the Latini, right, that spoke Latin, right, and their city Roma, right, were, you know, to consider them anything, you know, unique and special, is something that's always added after the fact, right?
Thousands of distinct cultural groups. So far, yes, we are dealing with what we might call Europeans. But unlike Greek city-states, which restricted citizenship to exclusive family lineages, Rome, even during the Republic, opened up and expanded its citizen body over time.
And again, one reason why, and again, even then, like, even saying that oh, it's particular family lineages, right? Even then, that is still a vast oversimplification, because one difference is that, again, the population of the Greek city-states was far lower, right? And also, it also was dependent on your status of whether or not you were a slave or a free man, right? As they would have said in the old books of the old days, right? But in essence, that was the main distinction, right? It was familial, but it could be lost if you were, say, for example, to have a certain amount of debts, right? You know, for example. You know what's interesting, Boy Meets Minnie? Like, I was just now that I'm seeing this map, because it has all the names of all the different peoples, is that right here it says that on the Hipponis River, it has the Sindhi people. I wonder if there's any, because, I mean, the Alani, they still exist, but they're now the Ossetian people, right? And their language is called Iron, right? And they are this people group, maybe Sindh isn't. Well, I mean, you know, like the Alani here are an Iranic people, right? So they came from the other side of the Caspian Sea and came all the way over here. So I mean, and also, I mean, even Armenia, it's not even there anymore. It's like way out over here. So you never know. No, I have no idea, but no, they're just thinking because the Ossetians, right? Like now they're here in the Caucasus, where the, you know, but yeah, their language, the Alans, as they were also called now, they're the Ossetians, because the Ossetians called their language Iran, right? And again, you can hear the word Iran in there because they are an Iranic people, so they speak an Indo-Aryan, quote-unquote, language, right?
African elites gained Roman citizenship through alliances and diplomacy by the...
Yeah, the distances some groups managed to extend into the ancient world is unreal. Yeah, I mean, again, like the fact that you have so many peoples that essentially just crossed all of Europe and ended up in like Lusitania, or rather, or even in the Iberian Peninsula as just in general, or in northern, you know, right here along the North African coast, is really astonishing to see how many, like, how much you wouldn't you wouldn't think that would be so common, right? Or at least that would be available for people to cross those distances. But hey, you know. Um, if you visit Rome, one place to visit is the city of Ostia. Now, if you fly into Rome, right, that's where the airport is. So right, so you have to take the um, not the metro. The metro doesn't go that far, but they do have the other ways to get there. But you go there, right? There's a beautiful beach that you can go to. Although similarly in the Venn diagram of humans and birds. Yes. And others, yes, indeed, indeed. Indeed, indeed. I mean, yeah, and then also to have, so, yeah, this, is, in Ostia, they have the island called La Isola Sacra, right? And Isola Sacra means the Holy Island. And so there is actually, if you want to see really cool, like, ruins that are very intact, but that are kind of like, people don't really go to see them very often, but that they're really close to Rome, right? Because otherwise you have to travel, right, like outside of the city and go very, very far to see, like, but there you can actually go to Ostia, and you can sort of hang around, and the whole island sort of has ruins and stuff that, again, is pretty intact, and you can actually sort of see it. I know they recently discovered something in Naples, but because of or Pompeii, but I can't remember what it was exactly. Like, they found some house, I think. They found a new, like, everything that they find here, it just always astonishes, because there's just so much. Because Pompeii really was like a resort town. Like, that's in essence what it was. So a lot of people had their, like, a lot of people from Rome, but also from the other cities had their, even Neapolis, right, had their villas there, so.
Late 3rd to 2nd century, before the Christian era. This is during the time of the Republic. One of the earliest recorded non-European Roman citizens was Massinissa, king of Numidia, that's in modern Algeria and Tunisia. He was a Roman ally during the Second Punic War, and his descendants were granted Roman citizenship. The city of Kirta, modern Constantine, Algeria, had Roman citizens by the 2nd century before the Christian era, showing that North Africans were being integrated early on. Greek-speaking Anatolians from Asia.
I mean, and even then, like, when we're talking about, even when we're talking about here, like Mauritania Kizariensis, right, or even what would the province that would later be given the name, right, the in Arabic Al-Ifriqiya, or in other words Africa, which included Tunis and this Leptis Magna and Ari Philenorum, actually was, again, had lots of people that were given Roman citizenship far earlier than in other places, so. But welcome in, Julie. It's good to see you.
Minor, modern Turkey, and Syrians from the Levant were among the earliest non-Europeans to gain citizenship. By the late 2nd century BCE, Roman politicians like Gaius Marius and Sulla.
See, like, okay, I don't mean to pause so much, but again, like, when you're saying non-Europeans, right, that's already accepting this idea. Like, this is the problem I have with this, right? Again, I understand, this isn't some, but when you say non-Europeans, right, you're already sort of saying that, yes, the borders of Europe is, right here, essentially the Turkish Straits, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense to people? Like, by saying, oh, this is non-European over here, right? Then we're already saying, yes, there is this invisible border, right, that separates, right, this side of Byzantium from that side of, or this, like Nicaea or Heraclea or Sinope, right, or any of these places, right, as somehow being unable to be as European as these, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things, like, oh, well, what if we drew the line here, right? Like, like, why is it that we have to accept that the invisible line is the border between Europe and somewhere else, right? I don't know.
began granting citizenship to Greek and Anatolian allies. The Lex Plautia Papiria in 89 BCE, passed during the Social War, allowed non-Italians, including Anatolians and Syrians,
What are you talking about? This is anti-Italian discrimination.
to gain Roman citizenship if they had settled in Italy. Julius Caesar was known for granting citizenship to Jewish allies, particularly those in Judea, Alexandria, and Asia Minor. Jewish leaders, such as Hyrcanus II, the high priest and ruler of Judea, received Roman citizenship from Caesar. All of this happened during the period of the Republic. Many Alexandrian Jews also held Roman citizenship by the time of Emperor Augustus, Julius Caesar.
This is an interesting thing, like biblically speaking, because people often like to, again, not that it's not important, right, but it's like the fact that Saint Paul, right, or Shaul, that the fact that he was a Roman citizen, right? People often, like, sometimes they divorce him from his own context, right? That yes, he was a Roman citizen, right? And that's why he could travel as far as he did, right? Even going all the way to Rome, etc. But the main thing being that it wasn't as though, like, particularly the aristocratic class of people or the wealthy people in what was then called Judea or Syria Palestina, right, wouldn't have had access to Roman citizenship. In fact, a lot of them did, especially because so many of them, ended up collaborating, right, with the Romans, right, ended up just accepting Roman rule. So, again, that also is something to keep in mind. Like, it's not as, it's always been something as if though, oh, he was the only person in all of Judea that was Jewish and had Roman citizenship. I don't know. That's just one of those, like...
Caesar's son.
So the Romans of the Republic period, and particularly in the last couple centuries of the Republic, are not fairly described as European. Rather than rejecting outsiders, Rome succeeded precisely because it had the ability to incorporate different peoples and make them part of the Roman.
Oh my gosh, that is like the exact opposite. Like, everybody loves to talk about the fall of the Roman Empire, which they mean the Western Roman Empire as being like, oh, it was like immigration or whatever, and it's just like...
System. The adaptability that they had was a key to their strength. This inclusivity gave Rome access to a larger pool of resources and manpower, allowing it to outcompete rival powers like Carthage and Macedon, which maintained stricter ethnic divisions. Roman expansion was not about tolerance for its own sake. It was a strategic decision designed to ensure military dominance. And when internal conflict arose over citizenship rights, Rome solved the problem by expanding citizenship, not restricting it.
Of course, citizenship continued to expand more during the empire. By the early 1st century of the Christian era, citizenship was being granted more widely to individuals in Egypt, North Africa, Syria, and Mesopotamia, making Roman an identity that transcended ethnic and geographic boundaries.
And also another thing to keep in mind is, like, this is why, again, like I brought up the point about St. Paul, right, is that it wasn't as though it was something strange, right, for the people of the time, but also the fact that it was something that was always expanding, right, that there were more people becoming Roman citizens, right, not less people, right, like even after the Great Jewish Revolt, right, that happens, and that ends up leading to, like, something, etc., like the stuff that's described by Josephus. Josephus is another one, right? Philo of Alexandria, right? And this is also why we know that there was never a mass exodus, right, so to speak, of Jews from Judea, right? Like, the only place that Jews were ever expelled from, right, was the city of Jerusalem because it was destroyed, right? That was about the only thing. But the rest of what was then Syria Palestina, we know that it was not destroyed because that's where the beginning of, that's where Judah Hanasi, or Yehuda Hanasi, ends up starting the tradition that will eventually lead to the writing down of the Mishnah, right? Which we know is stuff that relates to things directly even found in the Christian Bible, right? So, again, that's how let alone Yavne. Like again, in Jewish history, when the Romans held Jerusalem in siege, they would only let people leave. Again, at least this is the story, right? So I remember this from when I was growing up, was that in order to let the rabbi, the one that started that essentially started like the alternative Sanhedrin or something along those lines. Right now I can't remember exactly, but that essentially founded like another rabbinical court outside in the city of Yavne. Was he was able to be taken out because they said that he had died, right? And because Jewish law you have to bury within 24 hours, etc., right? So the Romans would let him go, right? And so that's how he was able to escape. But again, that also goes to show, right, that there wasn't a mass expulsion from all of the land of Syria, Palestina, or what was formerly called Judea, for example. So
auxiliary military system also granted citizenship to non-European soldiers, including Berbers, Nubians, and Arabs, who served for 25 years. By the 2nd century, Romans of Spanish, Greek, African, and Gallic descent were leading...
That's a lot of years. I mean, I have to say, for 25 years, that's a long time to get citizenship. I mean, especially if you have to be in the Roman army. I don't know. But another thing too is that he calls them Romans of Spanish, Greek, blah blah blah. Like he's already saying that they're Romans, right? But they became Roman citizens.
Armies, writing literature, and ruling as emperors. And in 212,
that's very true. That's again like that. That's another thing. Like the 5 good emperors, right? It's like I forget how many of them, but I know Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius, right? Whom right-wing people like to talk about quite a lot. Both of them were from Hispania, or from Spain, right? So 2 of the 5 good emperors of Roman history were Hispanic. So, I mean, literally, I guess in this case, that would actually make it more accurate to call them Hispanic, because that actually pertains to the Latin naming of their land, right? Hispania, right? But, yeah, and that's why, like, Adriano and then Aureliano, right? Like, those are surnames in Spanish, too, right? Which means, like, right, in relation to, so...
Edict of Caracalla granted citizenship to nearly all free people in the empire.
Yeah, exactly. 212 again. And it was very broad. Like it was very, very limited in the people that did not get citizenship by 212 CE. So again,
Republic and empire. The Romans consisted of Europeans and non-Europeans, if we wanted to use those terms. While we're on the subject...
Okay, I'm glad that he said that at the end, because, yeah, I really hesitate with saying that there is this mythical line in the water, right, on one side of the Bosphorus, right, that says, yes, this is Europe, and the other side is not Europe, right, because... But, oh no, not Aftur de Gobino, oh gosh.
The idea that Rome was once racially and culturally uniform, and that its decline was caused by increasing diversity, is another blue pill idea. The theory has been around for a long time. One of its most infamous proponents was Arthur de Gobineau, who argued that Rome fell because of race mixing, which supposedly weakened the Romans' ability to rule and conquer. However, this claim falls apart when tested against the historical evidence, as the Romans rejected racial or ethnic uniformity from early times. Far from being a homogeneous empire that fell apart due to diversity, Rome was a diverse empire that thrived because of its ability to integrate different peoples effectively.
So, Rome was a woke empire. That's the real red pill.
I don't say this for political reasons. This is what happened.
To be clear here, the Romans were pragmatic rather than ideologically committed to diversity. While they generally allowed local customs to persist, because suppressing them would be bad for tax collection, this does not mean they were free.
They went woke and they broke. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like again, it's like any limiting factor you put on any empire is like you're essentially putting a limitation on it, right? Like again, like I don't know, like tariffs or something. I don't know. Surely America would never decide to do something like that, right? To its own to the own world economic system that it itself controls. But you know.
Of prejudice. In fact, Romans often expressed bigoted views about foreigners, even after granting them citizenship. Writers complained about the presence of
Yeah, that has not changed. Like people have not changed about that at all. Like even like 1924, like people that gained citizenship after the 1924 laws, right, which restricted people from coming from many places.
outsiders in Rome sometimes in deeply xenophobic terms. However, these complaints never stopped the expansion of citizenship, because incorporating new peoples into the Roman system was always more beneficial than excluding them. Despite their prejudices, the Romans repeatedly expanded their definition of who could be Roman, incorporating more peoples into their system as needed. So, the next time someone claims that Rome fell because it became too diverse, remind them that Rome's success was built on diversity.
What about this second claim, that Caesar saw Gaulish governments as similar to Rome's? Gaul was located approximately in what is now France. Here's the red pill. While some Gaulish tribes had councils...
Well, one thing I will also mention is that Gaul, and of course the Francophones in the chat already know this, but it's related to the word for rooster, like gallo in Gallo in Italian, gallo, or gallo in Spanish. Which is why, you know, the rooster is very important in French iconography.
of elders, senates in a loose sense. Gaulish political structures were highly varied and decentralized, and Caesar never equated them with Rome. In the Gallic Wars, the Bello Gallico, Julius Caesar...
Wait, no, is this an AI generated? This is AI generated. Why? Like, what? Why would you even need this? Hello, Christina. Welcome in, welcome in. It's nice to see you. Yeah, but, like, why would you need that for a book as, like the Gallic Wars, it's like 2,000 years old. Do you know how many paintings there are about this? It's all over. Oh, yeah, for sure. Di Bello Gallico.
provides detailed observations about the political and social structures of the Gauls, particularly in Book 6, where he contrasts their institutions with those of Rome, while noting some parallels, as anyone might do. Caesar describes the political structure of Gaul, particularly among the Aedui, a prominent tribe, like this. The Aedui, like the rest of the Gauls, are divided into two factions.
Like this painting. This painting already exists.
One of these is headed by the state, the other by private individuals. The chief magistracy is held for life by one individual, provided there be found a person of distinguished merit. If not, it is elective annually. Now, I guess you could say that this chief magistracy of this tribe, elected annually or held by a distinguished figure, bears some resemblance to Rome's consulship, an annually elected office. But the Roman consulship was held by two people, not one, and they weren't looking for a life-holding position. And there is a similarity in that there were two main political factions vying.
Could you imagine if that's how, like, the U.S. presidency worked? It's like, it's either life or 1 year. Like, why? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we already have, right, seen, or just any government, right? It's like, you're either there for forever, you know, until, you know, or for 1 year. Just, you know, your choice. Your choice.
For power, but this is true in many political systems. Caesar writes about Gallic leadership more broadly this way. In former times, the Gauls had kings. Now they are governed by the nobility, who manage all public affairs in their councils. The shift from monarchy to an aristocratic council system sort of resembles Rome's transition from kings to a republic, governed by the Senate, though it resembles more Greece's transition from kings to aristocracy than Rome's. Some Gallic councils, where nobles debated and decided policy, function similar to the Roman Senate as a deliberative body of elites, but the Druids, an aristocracy, governed in a way that has no equivalent in Rome. They were not as centralized or institutionalized.
Ah, yes, we must include the Druids. Indeed. Indeed. And yes, if you'd like to sign up for one of my courses, you're always welcome to. But otherwise, you could also help me by going on Throne.
As the Roman Senate. Rome's Senate was a political body. Druids were religious and judicial leaders. He never suggests that Gaulish councils function like the Roman Senate. He actually portrays Gauls as less politically sophisticated than Rome. These quotes from the Gallic Wars reflect his attempt to make Gaul comprehensible to Romans by aligning its structures with familiar concepts, while still emphasizing its distinct barbaric character to elevate his own achievements. The reality.
I remember there was one group of Gaulish people. I don't remember what their names were, but I do remember that they were noted because they would paint themselves blue and fight naked. And the Romans were just like astonished by that. We're just like, what is going on? Like, who are you people? Just
is that Caesar did not see them as equivalent to Rome's government. The Gauls are excessively devoted to superstition. They sacrifice humans as offerings to the gods.
Oh gosh, they say that about every single. Say that about every. I swear, like, if there's one thing, anytime there's colonial conquest or whatever, it's like it's always the same. Like they have to say the same thing every single time. It's like, of course, it's always the same. Yes, it's always they sacrifice. Yes, and what.
Caesar plays up Gaulish otherness to justify his conquest of Gaul. He portrays them as religiously primitive and in need of Roman civilization.
Well, I am listening to this while mopping and also So Dead from today, and I'm like, the government in Greece, the movie? Are we talking about Rome? Hello, Felefanefe, how are you? It's so good to see you. Right? The government in Greece. I would love it. Didn't Greece? Yeah, yes, they did. They were. I mean, you know, they like their nudity as well, but it was different, right? Because, you know, oh, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Just, you know, adjusting. But yeah, like the whole thing of them being quote unquote religiously primitive, right, and in need of Roman. I mean, this is like a very common thing. I mean, there is a reason why the same language is used, right, by peoples later on, like because it's like, oh, the Romans said it, right? To make a fair fight, expose your vital organs. Yeah, I mean, you know, well, oh gosh, imagine.
Other Roman writers often stereotype the Gauls as barbaric. The Gauls rush into battle with a reckless bravery, trusting in their size and strength rather than tactics.
Oh my gosh. You know how... Okay, it's funny that he... Okay. That is hilarious. My app is not working. 1 sec. Okay, no worries. Like, this is all trusting in their size and strength rather than... Like, this is literally like... They're all 6'5" and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, right there, look. They fight naked, trusting in their courage rather than in armor. There you go, Miss Frizzle. It's right there.
They fight naked, trusting in their courage rather than in armor. For who does not know that the Gauls, those rude and barbaric peoples, were once the terror of Rome?
Yes, many Roman writers, including Caesar, Cicero, Livy, Tacitus, referred to the Gauls as barbarians. However, this did not always mean primitive or uncivilized in the way we think today. Unlike the Greeks, who used barbaros to describe anyone who didn't speak Greek, the Romans used barbary more flexibly, often to refer to foreign and uncultured peoples outside of Roman civilization.
Yes, the Romans represented the Gauls as alien to them. That's the red pill. On the plus side for the Gauls, over time after they were incorporated into the empire, the Roman view of them improved. In the 1st century, Tacitus wrote, "Many Gauls now wear the toga and speak Latin, no longer appearing to be barbarians in anything but name." So the label barbarian was not permanent. Gauls who assimilated into Roman culture were no longer seen as barbarians. What about...
I mean, like, again, that's also very common too. Like, yes, once they, you know, once you're Yeah. Once you have sort of that going, once you have the assimilation into uh, that, but it's I don't know. It's not. I wouldn't say it's something that's permanent though. Like that is something that Omi and Wenent in their book racial formation in the United States, right, talk about, right? That it's not like um, like this is one of the things about the ethnicity hypothesis, right? This belief that eventually people will assimilate into whiteness or assimilate into Americanness, and that anybody could do it, right? This is very very this became the narrative in the United States after the civil rights movement had the Civil Rights Act, etc. Right, like essentially from the 70s onward, right? And we've heard the same things, right? Oh, that we have a colorblind society, which is a lie. We're a post-racial society, which is also a lie, etc., etc. But it's still them wanting to place the ethnicity thesis first, saying that, oh, now it's all about culture, right? That culture is the only thing stopping people from being considered other in the United States, and that is just,
This third claim. Did Caesar see Eastern and Greek governments as alien?
Also, what counts as East to the Romans, I wonder? Because, like, that's always the thing. Like, what counts as East to, like, they could totally have had clothes, too, and just been considered naked, like how some people speak in hyperbole about girls and women in short skirts and crop tops. I would like to think that the Gauls that they fought in short skirts and crop tops. That is now officially canon. That is what the Gauls officially. Like, change all the textbooks, all of the textbooks now. The Gauls fought in short skirts and crop tops. For those of you that are artistic, you better start drawing them like that.
No. In fact, unlike the Gauls, Greeks were not referred to as barbarians. Captured Greece took captive her fierce conqueror and brought her arts into rustic Latium. Note how the Roman poet Horace presents the Greeks as the civilizers of the Latins. Indeed, the Romans respected Greek learning.
Yes, they respected it, but again, they also saw it as a. Welcome back, Christina. They saw the relationship was an odd one. I will. Another thing too is that, again, we must remind ourselves that the Roman, people often like to say that the Greek pantheon and the Roman pantheon are essentially the same, right? No, they actually do have differences, right? It's just that people are so used to being taught as though they are exactly the same that they now it's become like a way of thinking about it, but actually there was differences, right? Because there were differences because, of course, we're talking about peoples who didn't live in the same area, right? Didn't have the same, might I say, material conditions, right, for those.
Government and culture. They saw Greek institutions as refined and advanced, not alien. And that makes sense because Rome had been interacting with Greek and Eastern states for centuries. Many Greek city-states had democratic or oligarchic councils which were far more structured than Gaulish tribal assemblies. Caesar himself was highly educated in Greek history and philosophy. In fact,
again, like, it's because they already had the development of these institutions that allowed for the Romans to even use them as structures for themselves, right? But another thing also to recall is that, like, the Greeks also, right, in their own right, they also took stuff from neighboring peoples, right, like from the Persians, like from the Egyptians, etc., etc., right? So it's like, that's why it's when people try to say, oh, like Greek this or Egyptian that, it's like, well, those things are always the product of a polyvocal conversation, right? Because it's always people interacting with one another constantly, right? That then you can have something like democratic systems or oligarchical systems or decentralized systems, right, of governance even come to pass, right?
after his conquest of Gaul, Caesar himself adopted many Hellenistic-style political ideas, particularly the model of a ruler with near monarchical authority. Plutarch reported that Caesar admired Greek governance. He quotes Caesar as saying, "It is of great advantage to have the Greeks as allies, for their wisdom, learning, and good government have long been esteemed." This social media post reflects modern misconceptions rather than historical reality. It doesn't reflect what ancient sources actually say. The reality is that Rome saw Greece and the East as sophisticated, but Gaul as alien and uncivilized.
See, this actually reminds me of actually a conversation I once had with another scholar that wanted that tried to look at like the early modern period. So essentially like the Renaissance, right? So like Shakespeare time, right? Like back in the day, right? In the 16th, 17th centuries, and say that people would have viewed depictions of the Middle East, right, or of the, Swana, Mena region, right, as them viewing it as superior to their own. And I said, well, that's like, maybe that, even if you can argue that, right, even if that was the case, right, it doesn't mean, however, that that there aren't also depictions, or that isn't done in some way to, right, like that they can do that so as to then either denigrate, right, a culture that was being colonized by the British or the English at that point, right, like their encounter with the indigenous people of the Americas, right, like it doesn't just exist as a they thought that this was good and they thought that this was bad. It's like those views usually can be instrumentalized, right? And because of that, we shouldn't just take it that it is, oh, they viewed Greece as higher and more sophisticated and the East is more sophisticated, because in a technical sense, yes, I mean, that's where, again, civilization, like if we take ancient Sumer, Mesopotamia in general, right, the Fertile Crescent, and then Egypt, right, you have, these civilizations that have been there for long periods of time, right, with Elam and then later, Persia, etc., right, with the Achaemenid Empire, the Sasanian Empire, etc., etc. So you do have that. But again, that's they're all interacting with one another. Whereas, again, you don't, like, just because you don't have that in the Western Empire as much, right, doesn't mean that doesn't benefit, right, the Romans, right? Like, in a way that does, because in the Eastern Empire, right, that meant that you had several places where power could be claimed, as evidenced by the Eastern Orthodox churches, right? They have the ecumenical patriarch, right? But he's only primus inter pares, right? Or at least that was initially what the Roman patriarch, right, or the Pope was supposed to be, right? Primus inter pares, right? But instead Rome broke apart, right, and was able to claim all of the Western Empire as under their purview, because there were no other, right? So there's things like that, right? Like it really depends on how it's being used. But again, yeah, like if it's gonna be where there were pre-existing, right, ideas of this or that, it also depends too. Like it's because had Rome instead wanted to go for a more decentralized, right, aspect of governance, then maybe it would have seen Gaul, right? But I don't know. It's just one of those things.
Caesar respected Greek political systems far more than he did the Gauls.
Are you getting upset listening to this? Does it bother you? The Matrix is a comfortable world to be in. I didn't say the red pill felt good. Do you want to be free from bondage, to escape the prison of your mind that you cannot smell or taste or touch? We're just getting started. Let me show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Ancient Romans from Latium region, founders of Rome as kingdom, republic, and finally as empire, were obviously white Europeans and belonged to the same DNA cluster as modern Iberians, North Italians, and Southern French. Everyone in Rome was white or white adjacent, Arnav. The German barbarians and North Africans at that time were white like the Romans. There were not hordes of blacks
or my gosh, he actually said, okay,
browns in Rome, just different nations of the white race. Franks, Germanics, etc.
Wait, okay, that's just okay. One. So he's adding in these memes. One, two. He's just reading this, just reading it. I would not do that, David. Just letting you know, because that's no. But also, different notions of the. I mean, this literally does not even conceptualize. Like literally, I kid you not. Like the idea of race as we know it does not become. It does not even begin to be a thing on any level before the colonization of the Americas. Like there is just not like. Again, this is stuff that you can read in Racial Formation in the United States, right? You can read this in just, and even another book like The Invention of Race in the European Middle Ages, right? Like it's not saying that the precursors to race were not there, right? Because that is like one of those things, right? Like the separation, right? The racialization, one might say, right? And indeed, that is what Geraldine says in her book, The Invention of Race in the European Middle Ages, right? That you do have, right, the separation of Muslimness and Jewishness, and it being racialized by viewing it through, right, a genealogical sense, right? That, oh, people can inherit those things, right? But you don't have anything resembling, like, modern race, right, until you have the colonization of the Americas, because that's when you have the instrumentalization, like I was saying earlier, right, of difference, right, of viewing this as superior and this as right, like only then do you have, right, of, yeah, so this just different notions, that's just not even, I mean, unless you're trying to say that these things are whatever, but Germanic has nothing to do with, it is not an ethnic classification. And definitely not a racial one, because there was no race back then. Same thing with the Franks. The Franks are actually a Germanic tribe, so I don't know why you have them as separate. But anyway, it's just people that spoke Germanic languages, which varied very widely. It could be as wide as, oh, it went into Central Asia, or it was just, you know, Schleswig-Holstein. Like literally, it could have been, right? So when people conceptualize the people inside of those, like, Sprachebund boundaries, right? It's, I don't know, it's just very strange to think of them in this way. Like, yes, they would have looked like this, or they would have behaved like that. Because that's not actually how it worked, I guess. Different people lived all over the place, and whilst there was discussion of, say, physical differences, right, they weren't instrumentalized in the way that they were for race until, like I said, the colonization of the Americas. So, at least on anything that scholars that talk about race would say, right, would even come close to modern ideas of race. So again, yeah, to say different notions of the white race. I mean, it's interesting because, like, by saying that, this person is in effect uses a specific Germanic tribe, and then says Germanics, right? As if they were two separate things. But it just goes to show you. Hello, Rome is woke. Yes, indeed, Rome is very woke. So, yeah, again, like, it just doesn't, you know.
Okay, so let's talk about skin color. According to this one guy, everyone in the empire
Oh gosh, just hearing that sentence. I know.
was pretty much white. These interpretations of history project modern racial categories onto the ancient world, assuming that the way we classify people today must have been just as relevant in the past.
Not only was it, oh my gosh, here we go. Europeans, interesting. modern Ottoman, Finn or Laplander, and Englishman. So those are the only Europeans. Interesting. Also, welcome in, Philippe. It's so good to see you. But yeah, like it. I mean, this is like angles with the whole thing about families, right? Like people, like when people read about families in the Bible, they think that they function like how they function now, and they just do not. Do not.
Point number 1. There is no universal, timeless system for dividing people into groups.
Oh yeah, again, like I was saying earlier, yeah, like what year do you think that picture is from? Oh gosh. I almost want to say like I don't even know. Like I would say like 1871 or something like that. Because of course the English see themselves as the archetypical Europeans, right? Okay. Right. Yeah.
Different cultures emphasize different traits as important. The modern concept of whiteness emerged largely in the 18th and 19th centuries in the context of European colonialism and association.
Exactly. Like that's what I was getting at earlier. It's like the beginnings of what we even think of, right, as race as such, as we understand it now in modern times, does not become a thing until the colonization of the Americas. But whiteness as such does not even become a thing until later, right? The first thing that is conceptualized out of the two is always otherness, right? It's always been the other, right? So, and also another thing too to consider is the fact that to even say that is to act as though this is the default setting, right? That there is this, and then there are other people, right? And that just isn't true. That just is not true at all, right? This is acting as though this can be, like it's always trying to categorize, right, the Englishmen or whatever, the Europeans into one box. But even that box would have to have so many compartments that it just... Yeah.
Associated racial classifications. That's relatively recent. If today's racial categories are fixed and biologically meaningful, and not social constructs that change over time, then we'd expect...
And you can always tell what group of people thinks themselves the superior ones. And also is the one classifying, because there's only one race that can do it.
The Romans to have the same view, and they don't. That alone should be enough to disprove the idea that these modern categories are universal.
But that's because, of course, they see themselves as the inheritors of Rome, right? Like, it's only modern-day Europeans and their descendants in the United States, etc., right? The descendants of European settler colonists that even try to think of themselves as having some magical connection to 2,000 years ago, right? To the Romans, that is, of course.
Timeless. Societies create their own definitions of identity, belonging, and social hierarchy.
Exactly.
They don't inherit them from us in the future. The Romans did not divide...
Yeah, I actually will say that's interesting. Yeah, they don't inherit them from us in the future. Like, they had no conception of whiteness. I mean, they just did not. Again... And even that, like, again, like, I remember hearing someone say that Italians aren't considered white. You know, like, it's like, oh, so then the Romans aren't white? You know, like, oh, well, them, it's different. It's like, okay. Of all, yeah. Yeah.
themselves into white and non-white. You won't find it in any of their writings.
None.
Point number 2. We should...
None. Absolutely none. You will find it in none of the... Again, like I said, even Geraldine Hang, even Omi and Winand, all of the... You can read all of the literature that you want, and as much as they try to make it They will try to translate it to make it say this and this and this. Again, it is not until the colonization of the Americas that you even have the beginnings of that idea of classification, right? That again only starts when Europeans begin to classify other people, right? Because it's not a mutual thing, right? Like as Jody Melamed says in Represent and Destroy, right? Racialization is power, right? Like that is what it is. That is what it. So again, it's the people that try to say, "Oh, this group of people were this and not this," right? That is, they are saying this because they are the ones able to racialize, right? Which, by the way, this is the mosaic on the cover of the Wellock Latin books. Whiteness once again proving to be whatever it needs to be in any given context. Exactly. It's the same thing like when people say it's skin color, right? Like that's why when he said, "Oh, let's talk about skin color," it's like whiteness does not require skin color to it's only when it's advantageous to whiteness to emphasize skin color, right? When it isn't, it doesn't, right? Because again, like there are many whitenesses across the world, right? Like again, I will remind people that in apartheid South Africa, Japanese people were considered white, but not Chinese people. Only Japanese people. Like, think about that. Or legitimizing and enforcing pre-existing hierarchies. Italians, right, exactly. It's like, oh yes, the Medicis were, the Romans were, the Venetians, it depends which one. It depends in what era, right? It's like, it's just cafeteria racism. Asserting power. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's why Jody Melamed, like, again, like her article, Racial Capitalism, is a very good summation of this concept, but also the book that she's, like, that again, Cedric Robinson's book, Black Marxism, is like a must read as well, because, you know, you kind of can't, I mean, and even then I would immediately want to add, just the book Capitalism and Slavery, right? It's like, people do not understand just how much like the inequality of the world is literally because of the unique, and I say this in a horrified sense, the Europeans were able to have access to the mass transfer of wealth, right, that allowed them to outcompete, right, African nations and agents in Southwest Asia, North Africa, and South Asia, etc., East Asia, right? It was only because of the colonization of the Americas. Like, otherwise, Europe would not at all have the standards, the living standards, or anything like the Industrial Revolution, all of those things. It would not have been Europe that would have been the center of all of that at all. So this is, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to say that.
How the Romans themselves classified people. Ancient Greek and Roman writers were aware of differences in skin color, but their primary concerns when identifying people were language, customs, and religion. For Romans, legal status and cultural affiliation mattered far more than skin color. Ethnicity.
But if you would like to help me out, you can always go to my Throne at throne.com/Shakespeare, or Shakespeare, however you'd like to pronounce it, and you can either sponsor a book for my research or give to my survival fund. At least that's what I'm calling it for now, while I adjust to living in Mexico City again and looking for a job. So,
defined in terms of ancestry and regional origin, was sometimes relevant, but even then, skin color was only a minor aspect of identity. And the fact that the Romans found it far easier to integrate Egyptians, than they did to govern Britain or Germany demonstrates that they didn't view all so-called white groups as naturally compatible.
Now, there's nothing.
I mean, again, like this is another thing too. Is like, if you take on the premises, right, that those are like, I mean, I know how you're saying so-called white group, but it's like, oh, that's why I didn't like the framing of like, yes, there is a natural delineation of Europe and not Europe, right? But it's also like white and supposedly not white, right? Because then it's saying, yes, this distinction is like Germans are definitionally in that category, but people from Tunisia are not, right? It's just because I don't know. It's just like I get what he's saying, that yes, like when he said Rome is not European, it's Mediterranean, right? It's like I get why he's saying that. The problem is that has also been used as a classification, right, of people, so as to say that there is a difference even between Europeans, right, for example. So, you know,
Inherently wrong with describing ancient societies with modern terminology. It is, after all, how we can communicate in ways that people can best understand. But there are better and worse modern terms, and white is just an all-around poor choice. Not only because
That's true.
it misrepresents how the Romans saw themselves, but also...
Point number 3. The Roman Empire spanned Europe, North Africa, Asia Minor, and the Middle East, incorporating a vast array of ethnic groups with a huge range of skin tones and physical features. A recent genetic study has shown that even the capital city of Rome during the heyday of the Roman Empire was composed of people from all corners of the empire. After the empire split in the 4th century, that is...
But see, like, this is the problem. Like, when you, like, I get it. I get what this is trying to say. But but the thing is that this is already taking on the belief, right? This is already saying we have to turn to, you know, the genetics, which didn't even exist as a field, right? Like, they didn't even know this was a thing, right? As a field of study. And go back to ancient Rome and test everybody to prove, like, no, right? It's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do the DNA test, right? You don't need to do race science. No race science, please. But it's this, like, that's always the problem, is that people, like, I get why David is using this, right? To show that, okay, empirically, right, according to science, right, according to genetics, right, ancient genomics, right, we're able to say that blah, 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 right? And that the city of Rome, right, was super, super diverse, right? But that's not, like, that isn't what Rome itself, right? Like, that isn't how the view of Rome was constructed, right? It wasn't by genetic test. And the genetic test doesn't really matter 2,000 years later, right? Or however long it's been, right? Cause I don't know. It's just one of those things where, like, if you have to do this, I don't know. It's, again, it's taking already as on the notion that you could have found Rome as being completely homogeneous, right? That's, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
When the city's population went into decline and the European population of Rome went back up. Hey, we don't have to speculate about what Romans looked like. They literally painted us a picture. Let's look at the frescoes of Pompeii, a Roman town in Campania that was buried by Mount Vesuvius in the year 79. This site is especially valuable for understanding.
Because see, even what he just said, right? Oh, the European, like first, in his first section, he's talking about, there was no distinction between blah, blah, blah. But now he just said, right, there were more, like, you know, I don't know.
Early imperial Roman Italy, because it preserves artwork from before the wider ethnic mixing of later centuries. And
it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Oops.
The town was settled by Roman citizens, including veterans of Sulla's army,
yes,
making it a strong representation of Italy's population at...
The world is a better place. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you to say. Thank you. But yeah, the Roman army was always just a whole bunch of different peoples, which is true. But again, it's like, I don't know, I just don't like race science. I just gotta be honest. I just don't like. I mean, that is not how nations are, you know, are brought about, right? So, but it's very good to see you, Quack Quack.
That time. And what do we find? These paintings depict figures with a variety of skin tones, with women generally appearing paler than men. This reflects a Roman beauty ideal, inherited from Greek and Egyptian art, where lighter skin on women was associated with wealth and refinement, while tanned skin on men suggested outdoor labor, military service, or masculinity. If we focus on...
For the Greeks, it's very interesting because, them having tan skin or whatever was like also associated with them and their dedication to to sport, right? And not necessarily playing or partaking in sport, but even being a spectator, right? Like there are frescoes that show, again, Greek men, right? And they're all like essentially sunburned. I mean, that's how it looks like to me, because it's not even very, it's like very reddish a tone, the paint that they chose. And so it looks like they're all sunburned, which, I mean, I bet they probably were, regardless, but still, it's like they're watching, it's all spectators watching sport, right? It's not them partaking in it, right? But, yeah, the
male depictions, which are likely a better representation of natural skin tone, we see a full range of Mediterranean complexions, from fair to deep brown, using the...
Oh gosh, here we go. Presente, profesora. Welcome in, Renee. It's so good to see you. I don't even... Oh, he's corresponding these. I mean, I guess you can... I don't know, that's weird. Contains urine. I don't even know. Burn rather than tan. Epidural melanin. I mean, that's the problem, is is like this stuff just, like, we don't, I mean, like, again, I mean, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know.
Fitzpatrick scale, a modern classification of human skin color, Roman frescoes provide examples of nearly every shade within the light to dark human spectrum. If we expand our focus beyond Italy, the variation of skin color increases even more. A great source for this is Egyptian mummy portraits, a funerary tradition blending Greek, Roman, and Egyptian artistic styles. These portraits, painted on wooden panels, placed over...
Yeah, like, this is how we know what people from Egypt look like, because these are paintings that were placed over their what's it called? Their coffins, right? So that's why, like, we know what people look like in Egypt. When people try to say, oh, no, there's no way that they could have looked like this or like that, it's like, you know, it doesn't really matter what people want the ancient Egyptians to look like. It's like we know what they look like because there was paintings of them.
Mummies date from the 1st century BCE to the 3rd century CE, overlapping perfectly with Roman rule in Egypt. They're useful because they depict individuals with high accuracy, including their skin tones. Many subjects are clearly marked as Roman citizens, as indicated by their clothing.
Didn't they come in when you word it like that, I mean, again, like, you had different rulers from different parts of what was then Egypt, but even at one point you had the, like, different dynasties, like, even that were from Nubia, etc., right, that were known for like, in comparison to the writers at the time, were known for having darker skin, right? But I mean, like like even now, like there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt, right? So there's that too, right? Like,
does tunics with clavis stripes. This portrait shows a man with a medium brown complexion, short curly hair, and a neatly trimmed beard. His clothing marks him as a Roman citizen. This woman has light olive skin and wears elaborate jewelry. Her hairstyle is Roman, and her clothing follows Roman fashion, showing how local elites adopted Roman identity while retaining their own cultural traits. This portrait features a young man with tightly coiled hair, dark skin, and a solemn expression. His white tunic with a red clavis stripe marks him as a Roman citizen. What do these portraits show?
yeah, like that was the pretty much the standard how you would tell. It was from the clothing. If they if they had things like wreaths in their hair, if they had things like this, like see this necklace here on the lower left hand side. Now this is interestingly called a Cleopatra necklace, which is I find interesting. But here, let me for a second get rid of the. So there is a large variety of art styles, right? They must have been sought after in the empire. Oh, the Cleopatra necklaces. Yeah. Yeah, because they're usually typically they were made with gold, but they're unique because they fan out, right? As opposed to being like having just some gemstone or something in the middle. Instead, you have it so then that way if you wear like a square, like if you have a square, Cleopatra's depicted in different ways. Yeah, I mean, the only thing we actually know about Cleopatra is that she had a beautiful voice. There are no physical descriptions of what she looked like. But we know what people around her, i.e. these people right here, the people depicted in these paintings, looked like. So we can infer from that. Because also you can also tell, right, like other people, and another thing too is this isn't even listing the fact that you can also know, right, people that were part of the extended royal family, etc., right, that a sort of acolyte, well, I think those are just the ones that he chose.
Show us a wide range of skin tones from light olive to deep brown, different hair textures including straight, curly, and tightly coiled hair. It tells us that despite their physical differences, these individuals were all Romans, not...
One thing too to also sort of keep in mind as well is you can also tell certain differences, right, in if you look at hello Zedzir, it's so good to see you. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Is that another thing too is you can also tell different cultural distinctions as well as the age, right? Because also when it comes to having beards, right, there were certain times when where particularly you have people that were Jewish, right, in depending on that would have consistently had a beard, whereas other people would have shaved it or would have trimmed it down or would have so you can see. Oh, thank you thank you for okay. Oh,
because of their
no.
appearance, but because of their citizenship and legal status. But what about all these beautiful white statues? Maybe this will be news to some, but these statues, now bare, were once painted. We know that because...
Oh, you know what's the worst thing? I don't know if I've ever gone over this, but the British Museum is actually damaged, horrifically, in order to make it more white, actually took the Elgin marbles, as they're called, right? Any portraits of Herod and the Hasmoneans? Yes, there are. There are Roman ones, I believe. If not, look up Herod Antipater, I believe, is what the one that believe is the one that they have. Um, so the Elgin marbles are the Parthenon marbles, right? So they are what would have been on the outer walls of the Parthenon, right? That would have been when the Athenians built the Parthenon, right, which is on the Acropolis, right, in Athens, right. So there's the Acropolis, right, which is this huge, like, stone outcrop, right, and you can walk up to it if you've ever visited Athens. On top of it is the Parthenon, right, which is the building that's, sort of like the roof has fallen in. That actually wasn't like that. That actually wasn't like that always. It actually used to have a mosque in it, but they got rid of that for some reason. I don't know why, but it used to have a mosque in it. I don't know why they decided to get rid of it, because it had a mosque. But also at one point it was still intact, and they used it as a military storage of the Ottomans back when. And so what actually caused a lot of its destruction actually wasn't even the Ottomans. A lot of people say, oh, it was the Ottomans that did it or whatever, that that they let it decay or something. But actually, the Ottomans never thought that Europeans would do this, considering how important they supposedly valued ancient Greece. Is that the Venetians, in order to try to defeat the Ottomans in Athens, they were willing to strike the Parthenon when they knew that that's where their gunpowder stores were, and that's what actually caused most of the destruction. Like, a lot of it has been over time, but that is what made most of it collapse in on itself. British? No, the Venetians. But the fake Byzantines. With the Elgin marbles, right? They've made every excuse in the book as to why they can't. The British Museum, right? The British, why they can't give back the marbles, right? One, they say if they give it back, then they'd have to consider, then they'd be under legal challenge to give everything back, right? Which, of course, is only bad if, pillaging things while colonizing the world is bad, like, it's almost like maybe stealing people's stuff isn't a good idea, right? It's almost like. So they use the same excuse with the Elgin marbles, where they will say, oh, well, there was a formal contract signed, right, between Lord Elgin, who was Scottish, and the one of the ministers because at that time when they got the Elgin marbles, the Lord Elgin was the ambassador to the Sublime Porte, as they call it, right? Which is, hello, Ferret King. It's so good to see you. How are you, my best pal? So, because he was the ambassador to the Sublime Porte, which means to the Ottoman Emperor or Sultan, he was actually able to sort of get a deal, sort of done, where technically he was able to purchase the Elgin marbles, right? Again, the whole business of this is kind of, And so what he actually ended up doing is that he took apart, like, these were all part of one, these were all of one thing, right? Like, these were all carved into a huge piece of stone, right, of marble. So his crew had to literally cut it out, right, to get a chisel, a hammer, and cut out the parts that they wanted, right? Then they had to take those parts that they cut out, because they didn't take out all of the marbles, right? They didn't take out all of the Parthenon, right? But they took some of them, and the ones that he supposedly bought. And then they took those to England, right? So, however, what happened in England was that at one point, they didn't like the fact that, in their opinion, right, the fact that, right, so what did they decide to do? They literally got you know those it's only bad if you're the British Council. So they took like those scrapers, essentially like a sandpaper, right, and literally rubbed off entire layers, like literally essentially scraped off entire layers of marble away, so then that way they could have them pristine and white as possible. So that's what the British did, you know, protecting them, of course. So, yeah.
Some of the paint is still on some of them.
So the idea that Romans were white is simply not supported by evidence. It distorts history and ignores what the Romans themselves actually recorded about their society. It's a blue pill. The overwhelming weight of archaeological...
Don't be blue pill. Take the true red pill. The Romans weren't white.
artistic and literary evidence makes one thing clear. There were black Romans, there were Middle Eastern Romans, there were North African Romans, there were Romans from Spain, Gaul, Anatolia, all looking different from one another. All of this is undisputed in historical scholarship. The only place where resistance to this idea persists is in popular culture, often for ideological reasons.
Which reminds me, the whole thing about, I forget what's the name of the Assassin's Creed, the one where they're, where they actually decided to use a historical personage as the main character, with Yosuke, who was a black samurai that was manumitted from Jesuit servitude, and was in effect still had to went from conditions of slavery to essentially feudal relations, right? Essentially still had to serve his lord, right? But was given much more freedom that he did under the Portuguese system of slavery. I mean, again, it's relational. I'm not trying to say that it was quote-unquote better, but again, it's relational. Is that people really apparently are very upset about that, even though, again, he is an actual historical person. Like, we know about him, right? It was breaking up, stuttering on YouTube. Oh my gosh. That's weird. I wonder. It must be the Wi-Fi, I guess.
Than based on evidence.
Now someone might object and say, but the Post says it was the founders of Rome who were white. It wasn't referring to the citizens of the empire. I mean, when most people think of Rome, they think of the Roman Empire, but okay. Yeah, if you want to make a movie about the early days of Rome, before it amounted to anything, then it would be appropriate and historically accurate to cast white actors. But notice here that he's giving credit to these...
No. Because it's always actors from, like, I don't know, Northern England. Yeah. It's always, like, an excuse to not actually use people that live in the Mediterranean that would have looked, quote-unquote, like the Romans. Right? It's like, oh, okay, then that means we don't have to... Yeah. Due to enunciation. Yes, indeed, a rare Twitch sighting.
White people for the creation of the kingdom, republic, and empire. The reality is that everyone who became Roman over the centuries contributed to the creation of the empire, not just the first few generations. Saying that the original white people are to have the credit is said for...
I mean, again, they weren't white, though. That's the problem. That's the problem. And I already said this already. They weren't white because whiteness was not a thing yet. It's like saying, yes, it would be historically accurate. No, it wouldn't be, because then we're projecting modern racial categories into the past, right? If we're going to try to be quote unquote accurate, then it would be, again, what did the average Roman person look like? Find a person that happens to look like that, I guess. That would be the closest. But to then say, oh, white people, now you're already saying that that's very specific. They would mock the Gauls for their blonde hair. I mean,
Political, not historical reasons. Les Paul, the creator of the electric guitar, was a great man, but are we to give all credit to him for the accomplishments of Eddie Van Halen or Prince? No, Rome only had 2 genders.
why does it have why does it have Donald Trump's picture? This is like what is this? Well, Roman would be, oh gosh. Oh yeah, that's a description I haven't heard outside of a 19th century novel. Ruddy. But this is just like I just like imagine if it was Donald Trump. I mean, he would say this, so
We just aren't used to living in pagan Rome. A few years ago, marriage was between a man and a woman. There were only 2 genders, and young children weren't trans and given puberty blockers. Even in pagan Rome, marriage was between male and female, and there were 2 genders. Truth endures as it has through millennia. 2 genders, a fact as old as Rome itself. We stand for justice and honor on Earth and towards Mars. Semper Veritas Kek.
what? Rome had all genders according to Pliny. Oh.
Number of genders, 4004 BC to 2020 AD.
Oh wait, that's Elon Musk. 7.
2. This is a statement about all societies, but the Roman Empire is included in this period. So let's compare the illusion to the reality. Roman law formally recognized only 2 legal genders, male and female. Legal rights, inheritance laws, and citizenship status were all based on these categories, with freeborn Roman men having significantly more privileges than women or enslaved people. Women were subject to legal guardianship, while men had full legal agency. But are these posts talking about the law? Last I checked, 73 genders were never part of any law. No, these social media warriors are talking about culture. Culturally speaking, in ancient Rome, as is the case today, 2 primary genders, male, vir, and female, mulier, were assumed. But there wasn't a strict binary. Roman society had roles and expectations based on biological sex, but there were also fluidities in gender expression. So
I mean, even then, right? Like, I think Estelle, right? Like, to each, I think you have this as your status on Discord, right? To each their own sexes, right? Like, I think to me that's a really good quote. Because it's, again, presuming that, Paul B. Preciado sort of talks about how there are n number of sexes, right? Like, we are only taught to presume that there are 2. Greek lovers and tutors. But, again, like, that's, again, because we are taught to think of, it's more. It's a
roles and legal status that challenge a purely binary view.
Some people assume that Romans saw sexuality the way modern Western cultures do. Rigid categories of straight and gay, masculine and feminine, men leading, women following. They imagine a world where real
I mean, they imagined the 50s were like that too, so, you know.
men were aggressive and dominant, where Roman society upheld a strict natural order of gender and desire. But that's the blue pill version, the one that lets
Thank you so much for lurking. And that's right. If you think the entire Roman Empire was heterosexual, it's just heteronormative, you're blue-pilled. I think they were moralistic and homophobic as an excuse to gossip to destroy. Well, I mean, I don't know. After what they did to Elagabalus, you know, and he was the emperor.
people stay comfortable, believing what they want, instead of looking at what the evidence actually says. And once again, the real red pill, the truth, shows us something much messier, much weirder, and much more complicated than modern ideologues want to admit.
Let's look at some examples of gender nonconformity in ancient Rome. The Romans were not blind to the reality that some people don't fit into neat gender categories. For one, they recognized intersex individuals. Romans wrote about people they called hermaphrodites, individuals who possessed both male and female physical traits. They saw them as special, sometimes even mystical. In some cases, they were considered omens. But the fact that Romans...
So it was cynically used as a weapon? I mean, if it was, I guess, used as a weapon. Yeah, like this terminology, the problem with, is yeah, we don't use this terminology anymore, but yes, back in Roman times, yes, because it was a mix of Hermes and Aphrodite, but yeah, yeah.
Had a term for these people shows that they didn't see gender as strictly binary. Even in the legal system.
But that's not... Okay, never mind. I'm not even going to say it, because I think people know what I was going to say anyway. Yeah.
There was recognition of gender beyond...
Hello, Wig. It's good to see you.
...just male and female. The famous jurist Gaius even wrote about the legal challenges of intersex individuals, stating that Roman law needed to determine whether someone with both male and female traits...
We're watching Blue Pill Rome versus Red Pill Rome.
...should be classified as male or female for inheritance and legal purposes. Roman legal texts, especially the...
Yeah, sometimes being the emperor was the weakest post in the empire if the Praetorian Guard had any say. Yeah.
Digest, or Pandex of Justinian, provide evidence that Roman jurists grappled with cases of ambiguous sex. In cases where the traits were truly ambiguous, the law sometimes prescribed a compromise or an individualized decision, resulting in different rights than those of persons clearly categorized as male or female. What gender is that? Another example are the spadones, men who didn't conform to the traditional Roman ideal of masculinity.
Oh.
These were often eunuchs or men seen as soft or effeminate, and they were sometimes used in elite households as personal attendants, often working with women. But they weren't ostracized. They had a place in society.
I mean... The problem I have with, the whole idea of them being personal attendants is the way how people would want to depict that, right? That's always the issue, but,
We have the Galli, priests of the goddess Cybele, who were ritually castrated and lived out their lives in feminine roles, wearing women's clothing, using makeup, and adopting feminine behavior. Roman writers like Ovid and Martial and Juvenal frequently mention the Galli in a way that highlights their gender ambiguity. Their unique role in the cult of Cybele conferred upon them a socially recognized position that was neither entirely man nor woman, so the Galli occupied a unique social category that did not neatly align with the standard male-female binary. And let's not forget that in Roman society, status often shaped identity more than gender. Many slaves and sex workers occupied roles that blurred gender lines. Enslaved eunuchs were often...
They weren't artists, like actors. The thespians, of course. No, but this urn that he decided to take use as a picture, it's
seen as neither fully male nor female, and male sex workers were frequently described in ways that didn't fit neatly into Roman gender expectations.
So the idea that the Romans only recognized two genders? That's pure blue pill thinking. They clearly acknowledged more than two genders, both in their myths and in their legal system.
Let's look at one of the wildest myths explaining human sexuality. The Roman writer Phaedrus, around the 1st century CE, tells us that Prometheus, the Titan who shaped humanity, spent a whole day sculpting male and female genitals. But before he could attach them to their...
Oh my gosh. This story is just... Oh gosh. Just the fact that this was actually, one of those stories that, the origin of everything, right? Stories is so... So, Prometheus was out sculpting a whole bunch of dicks, and, you probably have taught about these roles in Judean Hebrew. Yeah, I mean, if you actually can read, biblical Hebrew and can actually also read the Aramaic, it's so much more. It's so not what people are writing, as you do. Yeah. This origin of a particular thing, right? I mean,
respective bodies. The fertility god Liber invited him to dinner. Prometheus got drunk, staggered home, and, completely wasted, started sticking the wrong parts onto the wrong people. According to Phaedrus, This is why some women have the minds and desires of men, and why some men, whom he calls moles mares, have the desires of women. But here's what's interesting. This story isn't really about sex itself. It's about gender, how people behave, what roles they play, and how they express desire. Even Phaedrus, who disapproved of same-sex relationships, didn't frame this as a moral failing. He saw it as something built into the very fabric of human nature. A divine mistake from the dawn.
Am I the only one that sees the thing that Phaedrus is holding above the clay doll that Prometheus has? That it also looks like he's using the restroom, but does anyone else see it as a, what do you call it? Like a pacifier? Good job, Prometheus, yeah. One good thing polytheism has going for itself is multiplicity. Well, that's true. But yeah, like, I don't know, it looks like a pacifier to me.
Of time.
But myth wasn't the only explanation Romans had. Here's where we get into the medical red pill, because for centuries, Roman physicians believed that gender and sexuality weren't about morality or divine laws, but about biology.
The idea came from Hippocrates and Galen, and it lasted for centuries. It worked like this. The right side of the body was masculine. The left side was feminine. Both men and women, they thought, contained male and female seeds. Whether a child was born male or female...
Oh, no. Oh, well, we're talking about seeds now. And the origin of love, according to Plato. Oh, well, you know, there's that too. But let's learn about male and female seeds.
And how much they resembled either sex depended on where those seeds landed in the womb. So according to Roman medicine...
Oh my gosh, I do remember that, I think it was Aristotle, that he literally said, like, if your bed faces a certain direction, you can more likely get a quote-unquote male, you know, assigned male at birth child. Right? Like if this was, like, you know, because they're thinking about positioning, right? So there was like, if it faces the east, it will be this. If it faces the west, it'll be that, right? Like, inside you there are two men.
A male seed ended up in the female side of the uterus, you'd get a boy with softer, more feminine traits. If female seed landed in the male side, you'd get a woman with stronger, more masculine features. What does that tell us? The Romans didn't think of masculinity and femininity as rigid binary categories. They saw them as gradients, determined by physical factors before birth.
But what about sexual preference?
I mean, physical factors, that's a very... If it lands on this side, you know.
This is where things get even more interesting, because while modern blue pill thinkers assume that sexuality is about character, many Romans thought it was written in the stars.
According to Roman astrology, celestial movements determined whether you'd be chaste or lustful, straight or same-sex attracted, monogamous or promiscuous. Some horoscopes even suggested that the stars could make someone specifically attracted to slaves or prostitutes.
You see,
yeah, the Roman accounting for fetishes is strange. I will say that it's yeah, it definitely makes your, you know, it's like such a Gemini. You know, it changes your whole view on that stuff. Yeah, I'd love to hear. Oh, okay.
what's happening here? To the Romans, sexuality wasn't about morality so much as it was about fate. The stars, not your choices, shaped your desires. So what's the takeaway? The Romans had a far more complex view of gender and sexuality than modern culture warriors give them credit for.
Culture
Yet,
warriors,
people
oh
today
my gosh.
still try to rewrite history to fit their modern ideas.
And that is blue pill. That is blue pill behavior. Accept the fact that sexuality and gender was diverse. That wokeness is Roman, the true Roman way.
But as we keep seeing, when you really take the red pill and look at the evidence, the fact is a lot stranger and a lot more fascinating than the fiction. So if you're ready to see history for what it really is, not a series of neat black and white narratives, but a rich, complex tapestry of human experience, then congratulations, you've taken the red pill. Remember, true understanding comes from embracing complexity, not from clinging to comfortable myths. Thanks for joining me on this journey through red pill Rome versus blue pill Rome. Until
I still am a little bit confused about the about some of it, but otherwise it's fine. But what I'm confused by is the memes. Like I don't even. Conquest of Gaul was welcome. Like, well, no, just okay. So let's go to talking about this here.
It's open
Oh, yeah.
season on foreign students studying in America, depending on their beliefs.
Jeez. Yes. I see you. No. Oh my gosh! It keeps wanting to go to the cult in Chile, for some reason. It literally.
It's open season on foreign students studying in America,
Please stop.
depending.
Stop. Sorry, I don't know why it doesn't want to transition over in time. But anyway, so now we're talking about immigration, right? Obviously in a non-political way, Twitch. So this is everything here is non-political, right? Everything. But yeah. Yeah. So anyway. My only issue with the vid is that it's taking different religious or cultural beliefs or even political constitutions as all one Roman things, and so does the culture warriors. Right, like, that's one thing I said too, right, is like, when he accepts, like, at some point, it makes it seem as though he's accepting their framing, right, and then using it, and saying, like, well, yes, then you can, or European this, or, it's like, there were issues that I had with that, where he would essentially take on their framing, and then it's like, no, you can't. Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Gothic Bunny. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, streamer. Welcome, raiders. Welcome in. Hello, Vitingale. It's so good to see you. Welcome in, everyone. Hi, I'm doing well. How about yourself? How are you doing? Welcome in, Gothic Bunny. If a mod would please shout out Gothic Bunny. Yeah, we're currently going over the going over some stuff about the administration in the United States and stuff it does to track students right now. We just got done watching an interesting video about Red Pill and Blue Pill Rome. But yes, if you'd like to make sure that you get counted as a viewer, make sure to refresh, so that way, again, you get counted as a viewer. I'm Shakespeare, and Vitingale, if you would please do me the favor of making sure to shout out Gothic Bunny. I would appreciate that. Or another mod, of course. But besides that, again, welcome in, get ready to get cozy. Everything, hopefully, will be. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Wig, that, yeah, there were some parts where... Cat Black. It's been a while since I've seen, here. There we go. Make sure to follow Gothic Bunny, friend of the stream. Anything interesting? Anything nice that you... Obviously, late Imperial Christian Rome had a view of gender the reactionaries like more, and that's omitted for the W. That's true. That's true. What's also interesting... What? What happened, Philippe? Anything else, Philippe? Sorry, I'm like responding to both Renee and Gothic Bunny, so. Okay, so.
On their beliefs. Criticizing Israel and its war on Gaza can get you deported. Not to be outdone, the German authorities are doing the same, pushing to deport students who oppose the genocide. And Serbia, where for all the protesters on the streets, the Vučić government still has the bulk of the mainstream media in its corner.
Let's see.
Tens of millions of Americans are asking themselves
Thank you so much for lurking, by the way, Gothic Bunny. I appreciate that.
this question. How did Donald Trump's crackdown on undocumented immigrants, which he campaigned on, escalate into something far more troubling? A sweeping suppression of political dissent.
Here we go.
Over the past month, more than 300 international students have lost their visas or been taken into custody, disappeared on their way to deportation. They made the mistake of exercising their constitutional right to protest over or simply oppose Israel's genocidal war on Gaza. The mainstream media
I mean, like, I know they want to keep wanting to say it's a war, but that's one of those things where it's like, it's not really a war. Like, I don't know, but
have played a central role in this. News outlets that vilified pro-Palestinian activists, often calling them anti-Semitic. They're now in outrage mode, conveniently leaving out the part about laying down the groundwork for this repression in the first place. Right-wing pro-Zionist groups are doing their part, aiding in the clampdown, supplying the authorities with the names of students they want deported. This story has implications.
Can we just think about that for a second? The fact that, like, they can give the names of people that, like, this is the person who said the thing that we don't want to be said or whatever. And, somehow that becomes okay, right? Let alone the fact that some people are already seeing it being extended to people who are naturalized U.S. citizens, right? As well, not just people, because there's been multiple universities now, and I think it was interesting because Columbia didn't stand by their students, if I remember this correctly, but Yale did. When it is the second, however, we normally call what it amounts to. Right. Wars can be a single person or an entire... True, that's true.
That go far beyond foreign students. It's about who can or cannot speak freely in America. And if history has taught us anything, this is just the beginning.
We're going to end up with the largest deportation in American history.
Having been elected after promising to crack down...
Also, by the way, just to remind everyone, America has had 2 mass deportations, at the very least, right, before. Both of them directed at particularly, Mexicans, right? The decade of betrayal in the 1930s were up to 2 million, if not more. Mexicans were expelled from the entire United States, right? And again, if you would like to read more about that, I would encourage you to read Valderrama and Ramirez's book, The Decade of Betrayal, right? It's something we've gone over on this channel before, in depth, of course. But also in the 1950s, right, Operation Racial Slur, right, because it did use a racial slur against Mexicans, where over 1 million Mexicans were forcefully expelled. Again, to call them repatriated is wrong, or even deported, insofar as over 60% of the people that were forcefully expelled were U.S. citizens or documented, right? So they were not actually from Mexico, necessarily. In fact, most of them weren't, had never been to the place. So, and as we know from the co-author of the book, Ramirez, Dr. Ramirez, he never got to meet his own father because his father was caught up in one of the where it literally was putting people on the back of a truck and then just shipping them out to the border. So, again, and it's something that California has only recognized, although they still called it repatriation, the Great Repatriations, right? But again, like, when he says, oh, this is going to be the largest deportations ever, I mean, you already had 2 previous ones, and the one that Donald Trump particularly focused on was the one in 1954, again, the one that started in the 1950s, Operation Racial Slur, which, again, I won't say the name because it is indeed a racial slur against Mexicans, but, you can look it up.
On undocumented immigrants, the Trump administration is now going after documented ones, students. Like Mahmoud Khalil, a Columbia University graduate in New York, with the requisite visa, who was arrested, jailed, disappeared, ticketed for deportation for organizing protests against Israel's genocidal war on Gaza. Rumeysa Ozturk, a doctoral student in Boston, grabbed off the street by masked men. Her crime, co-authoring an article in the school paper calling on her university to acknowledge the Palestinian genocide. Ranjani Srinivasan denies attending a protest at Columbia, saying she was just walking past it when she was arrested, warned that her visa had been revoked.
Imagine that. Like think about, I mean, like even someone who isn't necessarily even, was at the protest, but would just happen to walk past it. I mean, imagine the implication of that. Considering the fact that, again, you have at least 3 million people that have been mass expelled before, off of literally just the fact that they happen to be Mexican, right? And again, it had nothing to do whether or not they were Mexican citizens, but just the fact that they were Mexican, right? Because again, the deep, those going against Mexicans in particular, and again, I only focus on that because again, that's my area of expertise, right? Like that falls within my area of expertise. The stuff I researched the most is that didn't end, right? Like there were still things that happened in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and 2000s. Now, it hasn't uttered crickets from the free speech warriors, right? Exactly. Like, trust me, Ben Shapiro et al., they suddenly have forgotten, how to even talk about free speech, right? Suddenly, oh no, how dare you? How dare you speak about the only democracy in the, quote unquote, right?
She fled to Canada. More than 300 foreign students have been targeted by an administration that constantly conflates political activism and criticism of Israel with threats to America's national security.
Again, like this is the thing, right? Again, if it's going to be something like that, right, then it's like then it's also another question of whether or not, again, the Supreme Court already said that that essentially went against the district court judge's order saying that they would be tried in Washington, that the peoples that had not been deported yet, right, by the Trump administration, had to be seen in court in Washington, D.C. Right, the Supreme Court said no, they will be seen in a court in whichever jurisdiction they were caught, and also, particularly for that group of people, it would be in the state of Texas, which we know is not exactly. Again, like I've gone over this when it comes to The Violence Never Leaves You, right, is that the book by Monica is that the Texas Rangers and the Border Patrol are two organizations, right, that have been given this veneer of being brave and they have tamed the West, quote unquote, blah blah blah, especially the Texas Rangers, right? Whereas in reality, that they could have been like literally they were not ever anything like that. So yeah, to have the free speech, cretins somehow now learn how to be silent really says a lot.
Another thing that has been disappeared, due process.
The detention of Rumeysa Ozturk is particularly chilling because she was disappeared over.
No, you're absolutely right. Right, it is them LARPing, but that is something. But the Border Patrol is LARPing off of them, right? Because they came after, right? But like so much of the like supposed fanfic. Oh my god. Yeah.
an op-ed that she wrote in her student paper. It has had a really chilling effect on students and writers and activists that you can basically be disappeared off the street by masked individuals in plain clothes and unmarked cars simply for writing.
By the way, let's think about that for a second. What do we call police that have cars that either have, cars that don't say that they're police, right? Nothing saying that they're police, but that they suddenly, right? But they are the police, right? what do we like? What do we call that, right? Because they love to say, plain clothes police or whatever, right? But it's literally a secret police, right? Like, fascists have, right? It's like where we're taught to, but it's like suddenly when it's the United States, they're just plain clothes police, of course. They're not the secret police, right, that will disappear you. They're the plain clothes that are just upholding the law.
A critical article about the U.S. government.
There's blanket statements that are made that somehow the same rights and privileges of citizens to engage in activities in the United States, or even their First Amendment rights, are the same for foreign nationals. They are not. They simply are not.
Okay, I'm sorry, but that's literally that has been already decided on by the Supreme Court in past cases. So that's, we call it civil police. Yeah, like in like the one that I think we have in Mexico. Like they make them do this thing where they like when they finish their training or whatever, if I remember correctly, they it's almost like they baptize them. Non-uniform civil apparel. I see. They baptize them in spring water at the base or somewhere on one of the volcanoes out here outside of Mexico City, and it's just so cringe. I'm just like, just stop. There's nothing special about you.
We gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses.
We do not have to let people into our country who are not citizens and promote activities.
Sorry, I don't know. Literally, this is equating the people that came up and beat up protesters. In fact, in LA, people came with fucking pipes. Okay, they were trying to get into the encampments to make it violent. So, but of course, the side that they represented was the opposite of the Palestinian protesters, so I don't know.
Supporting the enemies of the United States.
Well, the Bill of Rights doesn't use the word citizen. It talks about the rights of the people. The First Amendment says the
Oh, this dude. I remember this dude. I saw him on... He had an interview. I believe it was him. I could be wrong. But I remember an interview he just gave. I want to say with Katie Halper, I think that's her name, right? I don't know if that's... But where he called... Well, he had a very dim view of the Ukrainian government. Yeah. He said something about the Ukrainian government that was very negative. And I was like, wow, I was not expecting that from this conversation, for you to call them that kind of government. But okay,
rights of the people shall be protected. There are other parts of the Constitution where they refer to citizens. You can only be a president of the United States if you're a citizen, for instance. Think about the logical implications of the argument that suddenly 30 million people don't have any rights whatsoever under the Bill of Rights, don't have free speech rights. The right to due process would essentially be the establishment of it.
People are the citizens, and the denizens are how they are using that as a sticking point. Yeah, well, yeah.
Dictatorship in this country.
When the U.S. authorities hunt down candidates for deportation,
Nativism.
they're getting some help from pro-Zionist Americans. For years now, organizations like Canary Mission and Beitar U.S. have been scouring social media accounts, publishing the names of pro-Palestine voices, calling their activism anti-Semitism, doxing them, trying to ruin their reputations. 2 days after Mahmoud Khalil's arrest, Beitar U.S. proudly tweeted, "We have been working on deportations. Expect..."
Okay, the fact that they're just out and open about this, okay, that's just fucked up. I'm sorry, this is literally, there isn't, no, this is just, no, this is just bullshit right here. We told you we have been, what? Excuse me, who invited you to, what are you talking about? Except naturalized citizens, This reminds me of the person that Destiny went to go talk to when he illegally crossed into the West Bank, right? What's his name? Oh gosh, why am I forgetting people's names today? The guy that he interviewed in Al Khalil, I don't remember, but gosh, I'm forgetting it. I don't even remember, but he's Fleischer is his last name. I just can't remember his first name for some reason. But anyway, he's known for being a double colonist, soon to be triple, I guess, because he lived in Gaza before 2005, then moved to the West Bank outside of Al Khalil, and when he did the debate with Destiny, he made it so that it would face the Ismaili Masjid, the Ismaili mosque where they had that massacre by the Zion person, by Bahu Goldstein. But yeah, like this sounds like him because he talks like this, because he calls it all this word here, like
Naturalized citizens to start being picked up within the month.
Imagine being this fucking brazen. That's just beyond. Like, that's like, we told you we have been working on and will continue to do. We expect naturalized citizens to start being picked up within the month. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's just, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, that's just, those who support an intifada originate in, like, what? Like, bruh, like some of these supposed states are like allies of the United States, like long-term allies of the United States. Not even like, oh, whatever. But just the brazenness of this is just so.
If the Trump administration was serious about cracking down on extremist rhetoric, it would focus on groups like Beitar US, which has said Israeli forces have not gone far enough in Gaza and has called...
Who says this shit? This is ridiculous. This is like the Israeli Supreme Court that said, well, which again does not have any rabbinical authority anyway. But for them to say, well, Betanach Omer, right, that it says in the Tanakh, oh, well, that the Amelakim, right, that, oh, you have to do this. That doesn't even make any sense. It's a secular court. Why on earth would you have to use the Torah or the Tanakh at all to even like, that doesn't make sense. But that's literally was their justification for why they didn't have to extend any protections to people or stop any of the issues or whatever. Like, that's just ridiculous to me. Using to me, that should just disqualify anybody that believes
for more blood there.
And now we're seeing the idea that maybe these organizations have some form of a role in the highest halls of power in the United States, which is troubling for an array of reasons, because there's no level of accountability, no understanding of who exactly is making the call to find these people to detain and subsequently to move to detain them. Some of them are just so loosely attacked for grounds that make no...
I mean, like, again, they've gone over people that are not only innocent, but that are, like, just, like, literally, again, the one of the people that they went after just walked past it, and then the video even shows very clearly that they walked past it. They walked past the protest. They did not participate in it. They walked past it because they were trying to get to their dorm room or something. Because the main place where the protests were being held in Colombia, right, was right in front of the main library, which has, has all of the, famous philosophers and stuff like, Thucydides, whatever, blah, 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 right? It's right in front of there. And they were just trying to get across because again, it's the shortest path to go across.
Sense.
Previously, If you were a part of groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, that could land you on Canary Mission's website, and basically they would dox you. They would put your photo, details about your life.
This is like beyond illegal. Like, I don't even know. Like, to me, this is just like, how is this even fucking allowed?
In order to try and hinder your job opportunities or just affect your life in this really negative way. And now we've seen these groups advocating for the deportation of students.
This is ultimately not about a free speech issue. This is about an activism.
Also, this dude is named Adolfo Franco. It's like literally the name of like, yes, the names of two fascist dictators in one. Like,
issue. The question
just saying.
is how to define that activism. And
where is this?
What led to a
conclusion
by the government that they were deportable? These are things that we feel are undermining the foreign policy and the security of our country.
Among the American institutions.
I don't know. That didn't look like Colombia to me, but I don't know. Maybe they, I don't know, looked. Must have been somewhere.
At the heart of this story
and
the way it's being told are U.S. universities and the mainstream news media. CNN offered its viewers something a little different this past week when one of its anchors, Jake Tapper, questioned the legal basis behind the student deportations.
So the question is, where's the evidence that they broke laws? Where's the evidence that they vandalized? Where's any of the evidence of any of this? All
salient points, except Tapper was one of many CNN voices that when the campus protests broke out last year, lumped the demonstrators in with Hamas supporters and anti-Semites.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, of course, they're just, it's all about spectacle, right? Like, and again, even then, like, oh, how much real editorial freedom does any specific, journalist, let alone in the mainstream media, have, right? But I mean, these things were done from the jump, like trying to say that these people were supporting, this organization and were doing it out of this, when it's like, but the actual people that are anti-Semitic and that they yet are willing to, pay homage to, right, to the state of Israel, right, out of, that's okay, right, that's totally fine, right, and all the other anti-Semitic shit that they say somehow is made okay by that, just because they support,
Despite the fact that many of those protesters were Jewish.
Again, what you just saw is 2024 in Los...
Well, I mean, trust me, Jews can be anti-Semitic. I mean, one, that's a lot of people in Israel, and also historically within the movement that created Israel, but also people like Ethan Klein, right?
Los Angeles, harkening back to the 1930s in Europe, and I do not say that lightly.
Now CNN's wondering how we got here. Universities have crumbled under threats from the Trump administration and the donors that many of them depend on. When the administration announced a review...
Yeah, like, that's the reason why you shouldn't have a university system built up on just donor money. Like, that's just bullshit, but...
of Harvard's $9 billion in federal contracts and grants over allegations that the university had failed to address issues of anti-Semitism, Harvard quickly stripped faculty members of some of their responsibilities, those leading its Center for Middle Eastern Studies. And as unprecedented as all of this sounds, it's actually a case of American history repeating itself, with a twist.
Why am I not surprised?
In the 1930s, Ivy League institutions like Yale and others not only refused to hire Jewish refugees fleeing Germany...
Yes, this is true. Yale is known. They're fucking with accreditation too, yeah. But Yale is known for its anti-Semitism. Like the fact that Yale somehow is standing with their students now, and Harvard isn't, or that Columbia isn't, right? Which is historically, I mean, it's in the Upper East Side, Upper West Side. To enforce curricula, yeah, and kill, yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, where are the free speech warriors now, right? Like, where are they now, right? Surely, right? Because they love to give their hypotheticals of like, oh, if I were put in the position of having to defend your speech, I would be there, right? Where are they now? No, of course not. Of course they were never going to show up. What?
But even refused to allow rabbis to speak about the horrors that were beginning to take place in Germany. So for these universities to claim that they are standing for anti-Semitism is just a pretext to suppress speech. All that they're trying to do is oppose and stop the expression of anti-war, anti-imperialist, and socialist views.
The story is being reported. What is not...
I mean, he's not wrong, I suppose, but I mean, it's... Yeah. Sure, yeah. I guess it didn't swim fast enough in the 30s.
being reported is the role that these mainstream media organizations and corporations themselves played in paving the way for the attempted deportation of students like Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Oztur, and the demonization of champs like From the River to the Sea, Palestine Will Be Free, has led...
I don't even know. It's Yarvin thing, how unis are inherently ultra... Oh, yeah. That's, because Mark Fisher was friends with that other guy, the one that, as I remember, they published their books from, like, the research center, I forget what it's called, but the whole, like, dark, what, is it Dark Enlightenment? No, is it Dark Enlightenment? Forget, is that what it's called? But their whole little movement thing that they had.
To the demonization of pro-Palestine protesters.
They want to destroy the state of Israel, and they want to kill Jews and push them. See, they are Hamas on college campuses when they chant that.
Jeez, what the... Like... Nick Land, yeah, Nick Land. Yeah, oh man, it's been a while since I've read Fang Numina. Oh gosh, remember. That book is well, it's been a while.
There are still exercises in resistance taking place, like this one at the gates of Columbia University, which students, Jewish ones, chained themselves to over what is happening to their Muslim classmate, Mahmoud Khalil.
And we are here specifically as Jewish students because we are the only students who can be here right now taking this risk standing up.
Police quickly cordoned off the site, but as Jews and U.S. citizens, the protesters are not at risk of anything else. Unlike Mahmoud Khalil or the others, the ones who showed up at the wrong campus protest, shared the wrong post, or wrote the wrong op-ed.
It reads like it is ghostwritten by Yarvin, by the way. Sunday went over it and outright suspected as such. Huh. I have to watch that. I haven't seen where he talks about it. I don't know if it's newer or older in his videos, but I mean, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Critical of Israel.
Over the past year and a half, there have been mainstream media outlets who have compared student protesters who are standing against a genocide to Nazis. Seldom have those outlets compared the shadowy detention and attempted deportation of students for expressing their views.
Oh yeah, this is UCLA right here.
That comparison.
This is UCLA right here. Like this is literally this is why anybody that says that this is all the look at what the police are fucking doing right here there isn't anyway.
To Nazism. That contradiction alone illustrates the broader reality of how we got here.
The government of the United States is deploying police to the streets and college campuses and sending them to detention centers over 1,000 miles away. That's the type of thing that happened under Pinochet in Chile, under Hitler and Mussolini in Germany and Italy. Every now and then the New York Times and the Washington Post will have an op-ed wondering whether there's...
Yeah, this is UCLA, Again, the students were nowhere near anything that would, they specifically chose a part of the campus where they would interrupt none of the major flows of traffic, because the major flows of traffic, right, whether you're walking, it's they're not walking by the Waffle Building, or they're not right in front of the Waffle Building or whatever, right, it's
the constitutional crisis. This is a 5-alarm fire. To those who ask what they would have done in 1933, what you do now is the answer to that question.
Well, like a lot of the people that in 1933 had the chance, some of us had to leave. And so if you'd like to help me out, because again I had to leave the United States, you can always go onto my throne and help me there.
Staying with the draconian measures being used to police pro-Palestine speech, but in Germany. Since October 7th, 2012.
Okay. That, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that. That's just ridiculous. That's just I don't even know what to say about that. Like, honestly, that's just so sad. Okay, so let's go. I don't know why it's a blue screen, but let's see.
This is Nori, and this.
Oh, so are cozy games the future? Are cozy games for the win? That's the question that has been asked, and we're about to hear the answer, at least a prospective one.
This is Reutersville. We are inside a Reuters simulation of a cozy game.
Isn't this Stardew Valley? Like, I swear Stardew Valley has the exact same art as this. Or am I wrong? Right? Doesn't this look just like Stardew Valley?
A cozy game is defined by its easy, relaxing nature and constructive rather than destructive challenges. Since 2020, this gaming subgenre has seen a significant increase in popularity.
I've never played whatever game that was. Animal Crossing. I've never played Animal Crossing.
And some recent research backs up what some have long suspected, that welcoming, cute, and low-skill video games could be an antidote to stress and anxiety. In Reutersville on this cold winter night...
Like, it looks cute, you know? Like, I do like cozy games. Like, I will say, right? Like, I do like playing... Yeah, it's so Valley Cutter, right? It's Stardew Valley. Like, it's the same art. Like, I don't know. It looks to me like it could... Like, if they were to say, the creator of Stardew Valley also made this, I would believe them, because literally, like, the art style is almost one for one. Like, the only different... Like, oh, you know, like, if you've ever played Stardew Valley, you know when you start to fill up the pages, right, with the different things you have to collect, right, and there are, like, those little ghost things, right? These things look like the little ghost things. That's what they look like.
Nori must clean their room before they can settle in with their own cozy game. The subgenre was kickstarted by games like the Farming...
Oh my gosh, imagine... Oh, Harvest Moon, okay. I guess it is a relatively low skill, whatever, sure. I mean, you know, it's weird that they would say that it's not destructive when, like, in Stardew Valley, you have to, like, get, you have to, like, you know, attack and, you know, the, like, what's it called, like, the little ghosts or whatever they are in the mines, right? Right, to get their, like... Junipo or something? Yeah, sold by Natsume. But, Harvest Moon.
Simulation Harvest Moon in 1996. And the cozy game worlds are often centered around social connection and building relationships.
That's definitely one of the core fantasies of a cozy game.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is definitely like Stardew Valley. Like, there's no way that this is not. Like, there is no way that this is not like Stardew Valley. Like, come on. Like, yeah, slimes, slimes. Yeah, you have to collect the slimes.
Is getting to live in a community.
This is Joshua LaBelle, a creative director for the life simulation game Disney Dreamlight Valley.
Maybe there is friction.
They even use the term valley. Like, what is it? Like, oh, valley. That's, I don't know. I feel like you could be cozy on a mountain or on a, you know, plain, I guess. Junimo are the guys to help you out. Oh, okay. Thank you. You know what I always forget is how to check, like when you're not at the community center, how to check what are the things you need. I always forget. Lately, I've been very forgetful, but the moving has definitely had a lot to contribute to that. But
sometimes, but ultimately, everybody kind of pulls together and holds together.
When much of the world shut down in 2020, there was an unprecedented spike in gaming. One UK study aggregated data on the 500 most popular...
You know, I wonder, because of all of the economic turmoil of the United States right now that it's causing, even to, you know, my own country right now, to my own country, Mexico, right? I feel like almost something akin to what... It's not going to be the same... Right, but I feel like almost something akin to what happened in 2020, 2021, like where people are going to be more likely to be at home and stuff like that. Like, Because there's just gonna be some, I don't know, like, just, I don't know what on earth he's doing. Like, Trump, he raised the tariffs on China to 125%? Right? Like, that's just, I don't know. On Steam, okay. See, this is the issue, right? Like, I still can't play anything on Steam because the computer I'm currently using is the one I came with, right? Which is a Mac. So, you know, there's that. But once I do get the new one, like once I actually have a new one, like an actual new, like as in like new, not like just not this one, but a new one, right? Then I will finally be able to play video games, I guess. I don't know. I never really grew up playing video games, so it's kind of like, I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it might be too late for me to ever be like into video games, but I don't know.
Popular games globally on the online gaming platform Steam. By June 2020, they saw a 23% jump from the previous year. And players say the feeling of community transcends the game itself. There's been a rise of social media influencers in the space, like Cozy K and Iona. They've amassed hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers. And these games can also provide a space for people who struggle to connect with others offline. Suzanne Roman, who describes herself as an autistic advocate, has personal experience with how these gaming communities can be lifelines for neurodivergent people.
I think it's just made them more confident people who feel like they fit in socially. There's even been relationships, of course, that are formed in the real world out of this.
And game developers like Dorian Sinyargu, half of the duo behind neighborhood management simulation Minami Lane, are
like this one's cute. Like I like the artwork of this one. Like I can see why like people being like, this is why I say like, you know, even though so much of this stuff is like mediated through the internet, right? Like whether it's video games or whether it's like stuff on Discord, like if you're actually getting to know people, right? Or even whatever, like, you know, it can, you know, it can actually help, right? Like it's not something that's always should be viewed in this like negative way, right? Because it's so often viewed as like, oh, it's internet, therefore it's nothing, right? It's
dedicated to making the games inclusive.
Every game is political, every game is a view on how the world should be or should not be, and ours is too. We knew from the start.
Yeah, I do like Dorian because he does say what is true, right? That everything, right? But every game is political, right? Like, regardless of whatever, you know, Asmongold says, you know. But like, this is so cute. I love the artwork. It's so cute. I like to draw architectural stuff, so like I really like just like all of the different styles in just one little street. But I also like even like the little bikes. It actually reminds me of LA, which is interesting, but okay. Anyway.
If we made humanoid people, we wanted to give them colors of a wide range and names, genders that could be a bit of a mix between non-binary, male, female, and that's in the game too.
Video games haven't typically been considered a force for good, though. In 2019,
like, I think it's interesting to think of gaming as self-care. Like, I've always found it interesting that there are people that try to integrate video games into their teaching, but it is very difficult because of access, right? Like, it's not something that is as universal as people might think. Yeah, lots of people might play video games, but whether or not people can play the video games or whatever, right? It's like you have to provide some way of them.
Gaming disorder, characterized by impaired control over gaming, was listed in the International Classification of Diseases. But after a 2-year study in Japan from 2020 to 2022, researcher Hiroyuki Egami found that owning a game console and increased gameplay reduced psychological distress and improved life satisfaction among participants. Other studies also point to a shift in perceptions of gaming.
I think as more research has come about related to video games, I think we're recognizing that it actually can have a lot of benefits.
Michael Wong is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neurosciences at McMaster University in Canada. In a survey of 80 undergraduates published in 2021, he found that casual gaming had the same effect on blood pressure and heart rate as a 20-minute meditation session. In cozy games, it's virtually impossible to lose, and they don't require extreme skill.
Well, I mean, you kind of can't really lose, can you? Right? I guess that's one of the things, right? Like there aren't really stakes, so to speak, right? Like, and that's kind of the whole point, right? Because then you also kind of recognize, right, that that you don't have to think of everything as having high stakes, right, in your life.
Some can help players tackle darker subjects. In Spiritfarer, the gamer plays a ferry master to the deceased.
Ooh. I like the art of this too. I like the...
Exploring death and grief. Its creative director, Nicolas Guérin, recalls when an end-of-life nurse wrote to him.
She told us basically I had given up hope on my own profession. And then I played the game and it helped me process my own emotions. She went back on the saddle and she rekindled her own love for the job.
For many, cozy games become a sanctuary. They're a place to escape, unwind, and experience a sense of connection in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming.
I mean, it's definitely very cute. I will say that. It's definitely... like one of those things where, yeah, I can see why people would say that, because it is like one of those things that definitely so let's see here. Okay. Let's see. So for all of you on Twitch, if you could please get in the machine so we can head on over to Globus the Elder. Do make sure to tell him hello for me. I have to go make dinner now, so I will see all of you later. Thank you so much for joining me on this stream today.